Well, greetings, everyone. It's another Thursday night, and welcome to another episode of the Sports Crib. Well, I've been threatening all season, and yeah, my Buckeyes are represented. Buckeyes in the house. Uh, anyway, hopefully Demetrius will be here a little bit later and join in. I see Mr. Carroll is here. Carroll, uh, well, I guess that's a fair representation. I'm not exactly sure. We can hear Mr. Carroll. Uh, all right, perhaps let's see. Uh, Let me see if I can get. Where is okay? Let's. I guess we'll be able to get Mr. Carroll there pretty soon. Let's see. Maybe I should call Bill. Mr. Carroll.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, we got a black screen here. I'm not exactly sure what that's about, but
Oh, okay. I can fix that in a second. Hold on. Oh, it's over there. Maybe it's not.
Anyway, we are going to start off talking a little
Okay.
baseball, and I guess at least we can hear.
Let me see what I can do about that. Hold on. Oh, I bet it's because I can close out the Zoom app.
And Mr. Burgess, how are we doing this evening, sir?
He probably still has access to my camera. That's it. Close.
Hello.
What's going on? Bill's going through a little quandary there with his camera. So he might have to go back in and come back out. But as I was saying in the opening, I kept threatening you, and you guys just didn't want to believe it, So I had to break out my Buckeyes gear here for you.
I see.
Wow. So yeah, hey, this retro throwback.
That is. That's old school Terrell Pryor stolen sneakers stuff like
that. Yeah. So I think. Well, we have a darker version of Bill anyway, but he's here.
What's going on?
Love it. Bill's getting in. He's not giving up. We'll do 3 hours of Bill trying to get in if we have to. He ain't walking away from this.
What's going on? Yeah, I just was on a Zoom call and it was working perfectly. Okay, hold on. I'll be right back. Right back.
Love it.
Oh man, yeah. Just in case now, this is a preview of what enlisted men have to go through with officers. He could be late, but we can't. Hold on, I'll be right back. But you better keep your ass out there.
Right.
But anyway, I was looking back in my notes, and as you say,
why would you go back and look at the notes? Why? You don't never look at the notes. When I get all my baseball picks wrong, all of a sudden you got to check the notes.
Well, as you say, we don't get to talk a lot of
That's true.
baseball.
I asked for this. Yeah, this all on me. This all on me. I asked for this. Yep.
And when we were kind of going through, the teams here, we were talking about, like, and everybody knows that the Braves excels in pitching, and that's about, that was kind of the extent of it. But there's also this guy named Freddie Freeman, man. Kind of like.
I don't got nothing. I got nothing. I just gotta take this. Go ahead. I gotta let you finish. I got nothing. Go ahead.
and we kind of discussed this because me not knowing anything about baseball for the most part, it's kind of like you and Mike have me on Saturday trying to put AJ Brown in my lineup every weekend. So anyway, after listening, to Dave Chappelle, I decided that.
Yeah, right. I know, right? That was good. That was good.
I decided I'd have a little roast of my own. So, what's this about these Brewers bats? Were you talking about the ones that were hanging upside down, in the Virginia cave somewhere? I mean,
exactly. I watched Batman, one of the Batman movies, and I got confused.
Oh, okay.
That's what happened. I had never been more wrong. I got them all wrong. Well, I mean, tonight's still determined. I missed everything, right? And I felt good about all those picks. What I've realized is baseball is a funny game. Because if you could go back a week, I'd probably give you the same predictions. The reality is, you're right. Houston's good. Turns out Houston's pretty damn good. They got good pitching, and what they really got was just timely hitting, man. Their guys, 2-out hits, clutch hits. I'm happy for Dusty Baker. I've always liked Dusty Baker.
Yes.
But we're gonna have to stop talking about the cheating thing at some point because they're pretty damn good. It turns out. So I mean, guys like Bregman, Altuve, shortest man in the history of human beings, but he can hit the hell out of a baseball. Bregman, Altuve,
the Kyle Murray of MLB.
Right, exactly. The Kyle Murray of MLB. And
Muggsy Bogues is a better comparison.
Right. Future Detroit Tigers shortstop Carlos Correa. That's me asking our leadership to sign this guy in the offseason. They got the pitching and they got incredibly timely hitting. And baseball is just weird. I'm not sure why I had so much confidence in those awful picks last week. This week, trust me, I have been humbled. I have no problem. Humility is a wonderful thing. If you embrace it, humility is a wonderful thing. And I still consider myself a knowledgeable baseball fan. Just because I got every series wrong doesn't mean I don't know anything about baseball. It just means baseball is a funny game. And with like I said, happy for Dusty Baker, but the White Sox led the AL and ERA over 162 game season. And then they drop a +10 ERA in the playoffs. Who sees that coming, right? So, yeah, I got to take this. James, you can go for it as much as you want because I deserve it. Because I got literally every series wrong. Hopefully, San Francisco will save me tonight. And then I'll go back to being boastful and Barkley-like in my predictions. So, Houston deserves it, though. They're not. This isn't about cheating. They're a really good baseball team. They are. And I still think Chicago was good and the pitching was good. It just didn't matter. Houston, baseball is a funny game. I'm going to say that like 30 times. So just you can put it on the loop. Baseball is a funny game.
Bill, you embraced the Brewers also, and their bats.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking Astros White Sox. My fault, James. I got so many of these things wrong. I didn't know which one we were talking about. I got that one wrong too.
Yes, you did. And we'll come back to that one. But Bill, what did you think about the Braves over the Brewers? I mean,
I'm not shocked. I think I said
a full series. I think everybody kind of picked it, that would go a full series also.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what I said, but I think I said some. I think I said at least 6 and maybe 7. Let me say this: the Braves, we get bored with the Braves, right? They are very boring in how they go about doing almost everything right. Usually, when they let a guy go, they usually are proven to be like even when we think, how are they letting that guy get away? And it's like, oh, that's how they knew somehow he wouldn't be as good once he left.
Yep.
Usually, not every time, but usually when a guy leaves, he's not as good as he was. They're almost like the Patriots in a way, right? They like to get out from under a guy sometimes a year or two early, as opposed to a year or two late. And they're almost right there with Tampa Bay and just, yet another guy is going to come out and throw 94 with movement and can touch 96 when he needs to, and all of his pitches are good. And I mean, once again, it's almost boring how often they keep finding these guys who are going to win 15 games in the majors. Like, why can't the Yankees get some of this? I mean, it's certain teams just truly understand finding and developing pitching talent. And they are clearly on that list, that short but very important list of teams that actually understand how to develop young pitchers into, really, really good, scary good pitchers sometimes. What else to say about them? They don't have, I was going to say they don't have any superstars really, but that's not quite true. They have guys who should be superstars if baseball knew what it was doing. But that's a whole other rant. But they have guys who are certainly really good baseball players, a bunch of really good baseball players. And the Brewers were the hotness, right? If you just look position by position, they don't have a huge advantage over the Braves. They were the hotness, though. They were the cooler story. They were the more interesting story. They were, more attractive, more fun, whatever. Bigger, faster, funnier, blah, blah, blah. I didn't have a strong feeling about that. That wasn't one I had a strong feeling about anyway. If I remember correctly, I said that, I think, at the time, that there was more of like a coin flip series to me.
Yeah, but the thing I did though, because the thing was back in July, they were a 500 baseball team, right? And then their best player, the guy Bill is talking about when he says should be a superstar, is called Ronald Acuna Jr. And he tore his ACL. So he goes down.
Yep. And
now you're thinking, so I've got this image of, because I don't watch a ton of Braves games, but I remember them muddling around 500 in July when Acuna went down. And then I thought, oh, wait, I forgot, though. They went and got Jock Peterson, and then they went bananas on deadline day and brought in Jorge Soler, Adam Duvall, Eddie Rosario. And they rebuilt their squad in the middle.
Because they are aggressive and smart, right? They're not just, this is how they're different from, say, like Tampa Bay, right? Because Tampa Bay can't do all that. Tampa Bay's not built for, let's spend, 40-something% of our salary allocation all in one, woo, right? I mean, that's not their thing. So they have the ability to develop young talent, sort of like Tampa Bay, but they still have an actual, we need to write big checks? Okay. Right?
That's what they did. And so, they went in and they out. It's not a case, by the way, of Milwaukee's not good. Not as good as I thought. Milwaukee's every bit as good as I thought. Sure. I underestimated the Braves. That's what happened. I didn't realize how good the Braves were. That's how I messed that one up. We'll go through how I messed each one of them up. That one, I underestimated the Braves. Milwaukee's still a really good baseball team.
Yes. And there were a lot of teams that they would beat, but unfortunately they didn't. And let's not forget the seedings, the matchups are important. There are teams they would have faced and beaten. Unfortunately for them, they faced the Braves.
They got the wrong one. Yeah, they got the wrong one. Yeah.
Well, now let's talk about that other dreaded team over there in Beantown that we all had said that very handily the Rays would take care of this. And we spoke about how the Rays were built and and
Well, James, as it turns out, sometimes big bank takes little bank.
Exactly. And that's a great analogy because everything we said was right. Tampa does everything right. They build it the right way. They won a bunch of games, and big bank is it's like the big joker in the card deck is in color. Little joker's black and white. That's what it is. Whatever analogy you want, and that's what happened. Where Boston's still Boston.
And then, this is another series that went the other way very quickly. Actually, this was another series we said, if it was going to go 3-1, it would be the other way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and it wasn't so much. I mean, Boston kind of limped into this series, I think, when you consider how far and away Tampa Bay was in this division.
Sure.
And then you had the playoff between uh, the
Yankees.
Sox and the Yankees, and of course, once again, now Big Bank takes Little Bank didn't work in that particular situation.
That's one game. That's
of
one
course.
game. Yeah.
And once again, in no way, shape, or form are the Red Sox a little bank. I mean, they aren't
there's no world with
spending
their little bank.
quite like they used to, but that's still a top 5, top 4 payroll in baseball.
I thought it was. I thought it was second in payroll.
I think it
myself.
is. Yeah, I think it is. I think
And it's one of the biggest ones. Yeah,
The Dodgers might be there though. Yeah.
I think the Dodgers are still number 1. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's right there.
Well, yeah. Well, then it was Dodgers, Yankees, Red Sox.
That's what I think. Yep.
Dodgers, Red Sox, Yankees.
Yeah, somewhere
but
in there.
it's
always that group. Throw in the Angels and you got those
Exactly.
4, and
Yep.
just shuffle them around. Yeah.
Yep, it's always that group.
We've all been looking at the Thursday night football game. Has anybody got an update on the Dodgers?
I don't think it started. I think it's probably just getting started right about now. It's a late start.
It's it's 6:00 my time. So
Yeah, they're just getting started. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it was a 9 East start.
Yeah.
Or it might be later. It might be 9 Central. They might not have started yet at all. So
No, it's 6. It's 6. It's definitely 6 p.m.
Okay.
Pacific time. So,
Okay. Gotcha.
all right. Let's see. We went through.
That's enough baseball. That's enough baseball.
That's enough baseball.
Yeah, I'm tired of sounding like a moron. Let's move to something where I sound. I'm tired of admitting how many predictions I got wrong. That's
okay. Let's see what else we could talk about here. I think I've got a couple more here that. Okay, no baseball. What about some NBA?
Bill's boy. Go right to Bill's boy, right?
So we got the news. The Nets have finally said flat out, no play, no pay. And they've also talked about, this, what was it, $183 million extension, $186 million extension. Hey, that's a lot of money. But anyway, we were talking about that, and unlike another player that just came out and said, "Hey, I need my check," so he went he went and got vaccinated. Now, there's a couple of things that I'm gonna add here because here's a man that says that he's representing those that have lost their jobs due to being unvaccinated while picking up a check every Sunday or every day, however they do it in the NBA. Yeah. And a quite substantial check. He's getting paid, what, $13-14 million not to come to work? Sounds pretty good to me. But anyway, then as we were talking, last week when I was brought up the question about, what would Doc say? It seems like the 76ers organization has said, thank you, but no, we'll pass. So, Bill, do you think that Kyrie will take his talents
to Jupiter? I mean, where would he take his talents? I mean, what are we talking about?
Well. Let's see. There are quite a few places he could take him. There's no places that he could take his talents that's going to get him a title, but there's quite a few places he could take him. I mean,
Send his ass back to Cleveland.
yeah, there you go. There you go.
That would be the best.
I love it.
There you go. Hey, now, if anybody would enjoy that, yes, come on. I would be willing to go help him pack his bags. I mean, if he was going back to Cleveland, and pay for my ticket there. Yeah, I would be fine. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So Bill, can I take my talents elsewhere, and then I mean, it would. Who's going to put up with this? I mean,
well, that's what. Let's start with that.
I love
everyone's talking about where he's going. He's going nowhere. He's not going any place. I mean, first of all, a team would have to say, yes, we want that. There's lots of kinds of crazy that people put up with every day in this world, particularly if you're super great at what you do. I could go on forever about some of the crazy things that are in some of the tour riders of certain musicians that you would know their names. I've worked in concert venues in the past when I was a younger man and still felt like climbing up building rigging and hanging up light fixtures and sound systems and whatever. And some of the things people had.
For those of you that don't know, that is called a roadie. So go ahead.
Well, not really, because there's a difference, but I'll leave it alone. The stagehands and the roadies are like two different gangs almost. A gang's not a great, but like they don't hang out. They don't hang out. I'll put it that way. But that's once again for a whole other. A friend of mine made a nice joke about like we don't want to be called riggers anymore. We will call regrows. But here's the point. That people put up with all kinds of crazy all the time, right? It happens all the time. There's lots of crazy people that people put up with. But here's how you continue to have people put up with your crazy. You produce. If at some point you stop producing, your crazy becomes way less attractive to people. Yeah. So first of all, Kyrie Irving has to produce, which means he has to play, you see, right? I don't know how much you may have looked into this, but I've done extensive research. And if you don't play, you can't produce. I have it on solid, like 100% unimpeachable, information that if you're not playing, you cannot be producing. So unless and until he starts playing basketball, right? That's the first thing. He has to play. He has to play basketball. Then 2, he has to play really, really well. Now, in his defense, he has been known to play really, really well. At one point, people talked about him as maybe being the best point guard in the game. Now, I think that talk has kind of calmed down. But it at one point was a real discussion people were having. That is he the number one? Is he the best point guard in the game? It was a legitimate question at one point that people asked. Not so much now. I think most people still have him in the top 4-ish. But people will put up with way more for the best than they will for top 4 or 5, right? People put up with if you're the best actor in America, people put up with all kinds of crazy. If there's 3 or 4 people as good as you, maybe I can get one of them. And maybe they're less crazy, right? So he's in an interesting situation. He's still a great player. Like, I will never take that away from him. He's still a great player. But great and elite are not always the same thing. Like, there's a good number of great players. There's only a handful of elite players. And like I said, some people use elite a little too freely for my taste. I mean, if there's 5 or 6, then it's not elite anymore. Elite's 1 or 2 where I come from, right? Per position, right? There's only 1 or 2 elite quarterbacks, only 1 or 2 elite shortstops, only 1 or 2 elite point guards, only 1 or 2 elite big men, right? Once you start getting to 5 and 6, that's great, but it's not elite. So if he's no longer elite, if he's just great, and once again, I would say I'm not denigrating greatness, but if it's, do I have to put up with him? Do I have to? Do I absolutely have to? And the answer is usually no, because there's other great players to be had. Elite, you put up with all kinds of things for elite. For great, you might say no.
Especially when
think
you
those are-
have elite on the roster already. You don't
Yes.
have to deal with great and crazy when you've got elite on the roster. So I'm going to jump in and I'm going to apologize to the two of you right up front. A, I'm going to go a little long. B, we're not after dark yet, but I'm making no promises. So because this particular guy, I can't do it, right? This is not it for me. So I actually don't mind disagreeing with people who don't share my opinion. When people want to, I have no problem with that. I can respect it while disagreeing with you. I can tell you why I think it's nonsense, but still say you can do that if you want. What I can't handle is narcissism, right? Particularly when it manifests itself with you trying to be the smartest guy in the room and you trying to, what my grandmother used to say, okey doke me. Don't try and okey doke me. Right. That's the worst thing you could do to me. That's the worst level of disrespect, which is there's all kinds of analogies people use. Don't pee on me and tell me it's raining. There's a bunch of them, right? Yep. Don't try and okey doke me. And this guy is the king of the okey doke. He actually called himself the voice of the voiceless. That's the term he used in his IG live post. Right? First of all,
the people's poet.
First of all, you're not anybody's voice because your ass doesn't talk that much. You don't, and when you talk, it's generally self-aggrandizing bullshit. So you don't even say anything. You're nobody's voice. And by the way, these people who you have decided you represent, they didn't ask for you. They don't know who you are. And they think you're crazy because they read the flat earth shit. They know who you are, bro. They don't even want you to be their voice. And by the way, these people have no problem speaking. If you're talking about anti-vaxxers and mandate people, they are very voiceful. They're not voiceless at all. They speak loudly, right? Which is, you don't represent them. That random nurse who decided she'd rather not keep her job rather than get a shot, she doesn't relate to you. You make $33 million per year to play basketball, and she's a nurse. Bro, you don't represent her. I'm sorry. I hate to break the news. You don't represent her. That guy that works at a factory, and their beliefs are their beliefs. I'm not even arguing that. My problem is this. The okey doke is this. Nobody lost their jobs. They had a choice. That's the difference, bro. They had a choice. They could have decided what millions of reasonable people decided. I am going to adhere to the rules of my employer or the laws of my state, right? That's what I'm going to do because I like paying my bills and I like feeding my kids. So I'm going to get a shot because that's what it requires, right? They didn't go, oh, my freedoms, my liberties, my right. They said, my job. My job pays my bills. My job feeds my kids. And it's a choice. So that person who chose to quit their job because that's what they did, rather than get a shot, cool. I have no issue with you now. That's your choice. I will die for your choice. Your right to make that choice. You don't get to come back and bitch at me and say you lost your job. Say the mandate took it. Bullshit. No. You made a choice and you quit your job. That's what you did. Because there's a bunch of reasonable Americans who realize this isn't about my freedoms and my liberties. This is about 1 million dead Americans. So you know what? I'm going to do my part. I'm going to do the right thing. And oh, by the way, I'm going to keep my job. Because I like paying my bills and I like eating McDonald's or whatever it is you eat, right? I like my kids eating. I like having clothes. I like going on vacation. And that's what my job does. And I am blessed to have a really good job, right? I'm sorry. I grew up in Flint, Michigan. Never imagined I would make what I make. Never. My mom and dad would be blown away at what I make. I make more than both my parents ever made easily. Like far exceed what both my parents ever made on their best day in their best year. They would be blown away. They would also be proud because it's because of them, by the way. Right. But my job pays my bills. My job allows me to chill with my boys on Thursday night and do a podcast wearing a sweet ass Detroit Tiger pullover that showed up yesterday in the mail. Yes. That is my job. That is what I've learned over years of training and experience to be really good at. That is what allows me to live my life. That is a blessing. You make a choice. That's a choice. You can have it. Cool. I don't agree with it, but I can respect it. But don't come back after you quit your job and say it's because of the mandate that I lost my job. I can respect someone who doesn't want to take the vaccine. I would ask them if they got their kids vaccinated to go to school. I would ask them if they get flu shots. I would ask them if they take Tylenol when they have a headache. I would ask them some questions just to spark conversation. But that IG post was nonsense. You tried to okie-doke me. I don't like it. He's the ultimate narcissist. I don't know him personally, but this is the dude that told me the world was flat. So y'all know where I stand there. Just don't try and okie doke. Say whatever. Don't come out and say this isn't about me. No, this is always everything's always about you. You're always about you. You are the ultimate. You and the dude that used to be president are on the Mount Rushmore of narcissism. And I can put some other people up there. The two of you fools are definitely up there. Don't. Because Andrew Wiggins had the same issue, and he said, you know what? Kind of like getting paid. I get paid a lot of money to play a game. I'm gonna take that shot. Now that it's approved, fully approved, people's arms aren't falling off. And oh, by the way, I might not kill somebody else by giving them a deadly disease if they have underlying conditions. Forget all the moral stuff. Don't get on IG and try and be some kind of martyr. Bro, you make $33 million US per year playing basketball. You are nobody's martyr. You are nobody's voice. Stop it. If you want to just be the center of attention, smartest guy in the room, I went to Duke, what? I don't care. Don't tell me you represent the voiceless. You are not Dr. King. You are not Malcolm X. Cut it out. I'm tired of Kyrie. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Go ahead.
Personally, I come from the pissing on my head and calling it rain generation.
Oh, sorry. I thought I messed it up. Yeah.
So,
I knew it's something about King and rain. That's
but
and that's what it feels like every time Kyrie opens his mouth. That's what it feels like to me.
Well, I mean, hey, you get no argument from me there. I mean, I still, I mean, I went to school a long time ago, and I kind of remember Copernicus and people like that, and I mean, maybe maybe it's just me though, but anyway,
it's not. Trust me, it's not.
Gentlemen, talk about the Phoenix Suns here. We talked last year, especially during the end of the year about Chris Paul. Was he coming back? Was he going to do this? Was he going to do that? Well, we found out the answer to that question.
Not going anyplace. Yeah.
But now we come to the other side when you have the big three Lakers now. And you also have some other teams in the West that are pretty formidable. What do you think? How much do you think that the Suns' season, once again, depends upon the health of Chris Paul? You want to start that out, Demetrius?
Sure. And I won't take nearly as much time because it's pretty easy. A lot of it depends on. See, Bill and I agreed with him. Anointed Booker as that dude. Devin Booker's that dude. He's reached that status. I think DeAndre Ayton is a really good player. Probably still has some. He hasn't hit his ceiling yet, and they're a good team. But there's no question who the leader of that team is, right? There's no question. They're talented enough to be competitive. But you got to remember, the Lakers got better. I don't think anybody's going to argue that, right? If Denver and Utah can avoid some health concerns, they're still there. The Clippers are still a really good team, and there's a team up in San Francisco that we're going to have to start talking about again, unfortunately. So the West is stacked. The West is stacked and loaded. He is critical, right? I mean, I assume I get the word success correctly. Can they be competitive in regular season games? Of course. But if success means rounds in the playoffs, yeah, you need a healthy Chris Paul. That's critical. He's the most important component to that. If without Chris Paul, they get bounced in the first round. With Chris Paul, they might get back to the finals. They can get back to the finals, to the conference finals. Sorry, healthy Lakers. But it's the same thing we said a few months ago. Healthy Lakers are tough, but the Lakers weren't healthy, so we both, I think, picked Phoenix in that series.
Yep.
I think it's similar, but I think Utah doesn't go anywhere. Denver is still pretty good. Golden State's looming like a dark cloud coming over Kansas with a tornado coming behind it. And the Clippers are still really good. So the West is loaded, and but Chris Paul is the engine for a really simple analogy. He's the engine. It's a really sweet car. It's a Lamborghini. Chris Paul's the engine. That's it. They're good without him. Any chance of being anything better than good, anything approaching great, talking finals, the word they have to have Chris Paul.
Bill.
I would just choose a different analogy. I would say he's the steering wheel. But other than that,
yeah, that's fair.
Just other than that, I basically just copy and paste what was just hit Control and C, and then Control and V. Other than that, yes. I mean, other than, like I said, a slight editing of the analogy used. Yeah. Yes. I mean, Chris Paul's on-court and locker room leadership is top 5 since 1980, probably, that we've seen in the NBA. I mean, he's up there with guys like Magic. He's up there with guys like, I mean, who do you want to mention, right? Whoever you want to mention, he's in the conversation with the best leaders in basketball in the last, like I said, certainly in the not having to watch the finals on tape delay era.
11:30 p.m. finals, yeah. Right?
He's a top 5 leader in that era. He is his basketball IQ is top 5 in that era. And though he's not able to just beat everybody off the dribble anymore like he could his first few years in the league, he still is an effective player. Like, he's not just a guy out there, pushing buttons. He can still play. But like any 36-year-old who plays a fatigue-based sport, right? We talk about how football is a trauma-based sport. Like, your ability to be great at football is to be able to resist trauma. Basketball and baseball are more about the resisting of fatigue, wearing out of certain body parts over repetitive use. And he's getting to the point in his career where stuff is starting to wear out.
Yep.
Well, that's my only concern is, when does this give out? When does that give out? How long can he continue to just play? And you have to, people about load management. For me, it's not even so much load management as it is figuring out when to say, okay, go all out, right? It's almost like effort management more than it is minute management. I think you can play him a lot of minutes as long as you're not asking him to do a whole lot in certain parts of those minutes. But you have to tell him, okay, now we need it now, right? Take off the, protective wrapping or whatever it is and give us all of what you've got. And you've got to pick the spots for that. And obviously the postseason when you really want that. So you've got to, protect him just in the way you use him. That's, other than that, everything that was just said.
Totally right. Yeah.
Gentlemen, before I get to the other question about Mr. Westbrook, because I'm just going to put off a little description, but before we get into that question, so I'm going to kind of throw you a little softball here. When you talk about important pieces, and you talk about guys that play their role without having a lot of fanfare, Bill would call them glue guys, but I think this is a guy that's a little more than glue, and I'm talking about Mr. Drew Holiday and his role in helping the Bucks possibly repeat. Your thoughts on how important a cog he is to a quiet cog at that? We always talk about how the squeaky cog gets no grease and all that, but here's a man that is very comfortable in his role and doesn't have to be a martyr for anyone. Bill, what do you think?
Well, I mean, yes, I agree that he is a little more than a glue guy. First of all,
right.
Yeah, you are correct in that. I would say he's more than that. I mean, some guys. I mean, even Andre Iguodala, who eventually became a glue guy in the latter part of his career, when you tell him, okay, we need you to turn back the clock 8 years and play like the 25 points a night guy, we don't need you to do it a bunch of times, but occasionally we need that. He's capable of doing it. Like, oh, you need me to do that? Okay, get out of my way. And I'm going to score a bunch of points in a fairly short amount of time to remind the young people, oh, Andre Iguodala was an All NBA guy at one point. Oh, right. Hey, there are players who their role, to some extent, obscures just what they actually are as players. Right, their role keeps you from realizing, oh, this dude could drop 25 points a night anytime he absolutely wanted to. Those guys are super dangerous. If you have a guy who's willing to be a glue guy, and if he had to, you can take a game over for 8 minutes at a time, 12 minutes at a time. I mean, wow, right? I mean, that's how you build winning teams, right? I mean, it is, if you look back at those Golden State teams, their glue guys, 2 or 3 of them were dudes that, oh, they could just take over the game, at least for a little while. Wow, that guy just took over a game, and he's a glue guy, right? That's how you win a bunch of games if you can build your team that way. So yes, I'm right. I'll be honest. I can't remember what the question was again, but I like him.
Drew Holiday.
Yes, I like him. Yes. What was the actual question again?
The actual question was, how important is his role in, to getting the Milwaukee Bucks back to?
Vital. Vitally important. He is their Andre Iguodala, right? He's more than just a glue guy. He's a guy that if you need him to drop 25, he can do it. Yeah. That guy's super important.
Yeah, I think there's a level between glue guy and star, or maybe it's star actually. But the word that keeps popping in my mind is complementary. There's a guy that's on your team that does 1 or 2 things better than everyone else. He might literally be the only guy on your team that can do certain things, but he does, and it's more than glue. Like Bill said, it's more than glue, and he is complementary. It's like they looked at that puzzle 2 seasons ago and said, God, we got this big missing piece right here off to the left, not in the center, because Giannis got the center taken care of, and you got some dudes around the edge. And I keep dropping crazy analogies. I hope this one works, but Bill will fix it if it doesn't. But we got this missing piece right here on the left. And it was like, who would be the perfect guy to fit in there? And it was Drew Holiday. And when they got him, they dropped him in. And what they saw was, we got a complete puzzle here. And that's what happened. Vital is the right word. I totally agree with everything. It's like we sometimes, Bill and I sometimes just make it easy for the other one. And whoever gets to go first carries all the heavy lifting. And the other person can just say, yep, everything that dude just said. Vital is the right word I would use. He's such a, and on a given night, if they ask him, he could do everything Bill said. He could drop a triple-double. Drew Holiday is a very talented player. He could go to another team and be a star. Iguodala could have did the same thing. But I think when you have that guy, and what makes him special, the thing about glue guys, I'll say this. Glue guys accept that they're glue guys, right? Star glue guys are guys who know on a given night, I can be a star. But tonight, you need me to be a glue guy, so I'm willing to be a glue guy. Some glue guys are glue guys. That's who they are. They're glue guys 82 games a year. These guys at this next level Bill's talking about, this is a guy who says, for the betterment of the team, I'll be a glue guy tonight. Tomorrow night, I might have to be the man. And those guys are special. I mean, because there's a mentality that guy has that puts the team first. Because some of those guys are like, screw it, I want to get paid. I want to go to a team where I'm the star. They prioritize all that other stuff. And these really special type of glue guys are like, I'll be the guy who on a given night can do dirty work, or I can ball out and get you buckets. And they have the ability to do it, but more importantly, they have the mentality and the willingness to do it. And Drew Holiday is one of those dudes.
Okay. Now, this isn't really a rant where I would say this is actually a moment of truth. I'm going to go back here and get a Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King moment here. And I just don't understand what this is going on with this particular guy.
I know where you're going.
If everybody knows how I feel about the city of Cleveland, okay. If I were to take an NBA player and have him represent the city of Cleveland and all that it represents, from the clowndom all the way down to just the, well, anyway, This player would be Russell Westbrook. Okay, to me, this is Russell is the clown prince of basketball. Okay, I understand his documentary came out today, and uh, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but if he hadn't become a Laker over the offseason, would he have gotten a documentary? I mean, or would he have had to wait another couple of years, before people decided that they were going to put up with? Is it Cribbing After Dark yet? No.
I shot that. I shot that out like 20 minutes ago.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, okay.
I took care of that for you. Don't worry.
Then I mean, to me, here's a guy, that when you talk about someone that has rather pad his own stats than play for the good of the team, I think he characterizes that. With the absence of Bradley Beal, of course, I mean, we talk about him being a triple double machine and all that. But going into the question of the Lakers, okay, and I'm looking at the chemistry between Rondo and AD. Rondo throws an alley oop, AD flushes it down. So far, Westbrook throws an alley oop and it goes over the damn backboard. I mean, what was it? Like, what they have 11 turnovers the other night? Yeah. So uh, first I'm worried about the speed with which he plays the game when he has mostly somewhat of an ambulatory cast behind him, and second, whether how concerned is he going to be about his own stats, especially when you have LeBron on on the downhill side of his career. Is he going to will his personality, and we know Russ has a type A personality, as most people, but AD can be kind of soft. We definitely know that Dwight Howard, I mean, he's one step away from filling in for the Pillsbury Doughboy. So, Demetrius, how concerned about are you that the Lakers are going to be uh, confronted with stat Russell Westbrook rather than focus Russell Westbrook? Because there's only one that can get you to the finals.
Wow. So this is a rare occasion where I can't remember a time where I have completely disagreed with one of you guys. Right. Usually I get what you guys are trying to say, and I kind of that's not my view. I think talent, I don't even need to do that part. Russell Westbrook has gifts from God. His talent is unquestionable.
Never question his talent.
I know. I got you. I think that my feeling is that this whole idea that he's not a team guy is media overblown. He has played for some, all right, we're not quite after dark, crappy teams, right? I believe that a type A personality who walks onto the floor and believes in his heart, not because he's a jerk or even arrogant. There's evidence to prove it. I'm the best player on the floor. I give us the best chance to win. If I do these things, and I am someone who believes a triple-double is not just a stat. A triple-double should contribute to you're putting in buckets, you're helping other guys get buckets, and you're getting rebounds, which is either stopping the other team from getting another chance or giving you another chance. Those stats aren't just stats. They're meaningful stats that impact winning and losing in basketball. That's why they're a big deal. I think he is type A. I think they lack that. LeBron can be that, but I don't think it's his default. So I think that we want to worry about triple-double Russ. That just shouldn't happen that often. That's not what they need. I think more than anything, Russ is a competitor, and he wants to win. So if you sit this guy in a room, or didn't even sit him in the room, he's on the court practicing, and he says, I don't need to lead us in rebounding. We got Anthony Davis and LeBron. I don't need to lead us in scoring. We got LeBron James and Anthony Davis. He probably will lead them assists, maybe Rondo, but he probably will lead them in assists. I think they will get the best version of Russ that we've ever seen. It won't be triple-double for the season. Health is their only concern. Russell is not a concern about like stopping them from winning games. I mean, you got Carmelo out there to shoot. Dwight Howard can still rebound. He should just be a piece. I think the idea that Russ wants or needs to be the star is overblown. He played for crap teams in Oklahoma City and Washington. When he had Kevin Durant, they were good. They were in the finals because he knows what he needs to do. I think the documentary, to get back to the point, will give me an opportunity to really get to know him, because he's another guy I don't know. All the stories I have about Russ are somebody else's perspective on Russ. And I just don't inherently trust that. And if I get to see him talking about what motivates him, how he was raised, what makes him act and think and respond, because the bulk of it is reactions. Most of the clips we see of Russ, most of the things we hear about Russ are about his reaction to something. And that's easy. That's lazy journalism. That's easy to do, right? I want to hear these stories about what motivates him. What is, and we all have things that motivate us, right? I think that he has an opportunity to get a championship, and type A dudes like the Brody want championship more than anything. And he has played for a couple of he started off with a really good team, and then he spent years in futility, showing up every night, balling out, knowing he had no chance to win a championship. This is a very real opportunity for him to win a championship, and I think he's going to do whatever it takes, even if that means dialing it back, to get this done. So no, I think they're going to get the best. To answer your question, I think they're going to get the best version that allows the Lakers to be the best they can be. Stat-wise, it won't be his best numbers. He probably won't win MVP or something like that. I don't think he cares about that. I think that's a misnomer. I think Russ wants to win. I think Russ is a competitor. And that's what it'll take, is for him to be a better all-around player, better facilitator. He'll do whatever they need to.
Go ahead, Bill. I mean, to me, wasn't it Russ's play and attitude that got him to some of those crappy teams? I mean, how did he get to the Wizards? I mean, come on now. All of a sudden he woke up in the morning and said, "Hey, man, I want to go to the Wizards." Come on, he actually, I don't know what's the correct term, unplayed his way onto some of those crappy teams.
Sam Presti was gathering draft picks. That's what that was.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, right. I mean, he's a very interesting guy, very, very loyal. And just, I don't know if it's after dark yet or not, but shout out to MJ Acosta and her very lucky new husband. Where was I? Oh, so the fact is that he is not only a type A personality, but he's a confrontational personality, right? And everyone I've ever run across, they are fairly strongly polarized regarding him. I don't know anybody who's like, I could take him or leave him. Either they are big fans or they really don't like him. I can't think of a single person who's like, yeah, I'm fine, whatever, when it comes to him. He is a polarizing personality. He is not just type A, but a confrontational personality, right? He pushes buttons. We talked about this somewhat a little bit, though it manifests itself even more obviously in a guy like, say, we talked about Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler like turns it up to 11, right? He goes out of his way sometimes to be the Spanish have a word called fujita, right? And it literally means needler. He's that, right? He's right. And if you don't like being poked, you're not going to like being a teammate of Jimmy Butler's.
Right.
But if poking you gets the best out of you, whether you like it or not, maybe you should put up with it. Right? But Russell is not quite that. He's not quite this guy, but he is this guy, right? He's big on, I'm going to step into this. I'm going to make us better. If you follow me, we'll win. I don't always have to score. I don't mind scoring. In fact, I quite like scoring, but I don't have to score. Right?
And I'm not going to pass up an opportunity either.
No, but those are two different things, right? He's not Ben Simmons, right? I mean, he's not that. He's a guy who's more than willing to score. I'm just saying that if you've got guys who's going, if a guy's going off, going crazy nuts, he's not going to be like, oh, I got to get my shots up now because this guy's going off. No, he's going to help that guy keep going off, right? He can be a facilitator. He can be a tough guy. He's not quite an elite defender, but he's a good defender. He's a terrific. He can, he still creates those great sort of, drive and drop the ball off situations. Even though he's not quite as explosive as he was, he's still more explosive than 92% of the guys in the league. He's gone from maybe the 1 percentile to the 8th percentile in explosiveness because of age and whatever, but he's still up there on the right team. And that's how you can start this discussion with a lot of players, but especially a guy like him. On the right team, he's the difference between being a contender and winning it all. On the right team. On the wrong team, he's going to destroy whatever you had, not because he's trying to do it, but because he's going to force people to make a decision about how much they like playing basketball, basically, right? He's going to make you decide, right? Are you a guy who plays professional basketball because you like the attention and the money and the whatever, or do you want to win basketball games, right? And you're going to have to face him every day, practices, and then in the locker room, and he's going to ask you hard questions. If you didn't play hard or if you didn't play smart, he's going to ask you a bunch of really unpleasant questions about that. So I can see why some people don't necessarily love the Russell Westbrook experience, but it's never been one that's not about the team. He is a team guy. He does want to win.
Yeah. Doesn't mean he's fun to play with, by the way.
No,
great use of ambulatory earlier, by the way. I meant to compliment you on that. Ambulatory is a very apt word to describe that roster.
I think maybe around the first of the year, we will be discussing the interactions of Rondo and Russ.
You're predicting a Rondo Russ blowout. Okay.
Hey,
that could happen, but don't assume it'll be Russ's fault. I haven't seen the books. I haven't seen these books about Rondo being a great guy.
Right. Also, I should point out that he's another guy that's rubbed the occasional teammate the wrong way.
And that's why I'm saying, you in some cases here, you're going to, especially if things go sideways, you might have a pointing of fingers. Right. It's his fault. No, it's his fault. Because Rondo, like you said, Rondo is another one that doesn't mind confrontation either. Even though he might be a size advantage, but he doesn't mind confrontation. Yeah. So let's talk about what happened this weekend in college football. And,
yes.
I kind of maybe want to go back to what happened the week previously when we had number 6 versus number 9, and number 9 happened to be Notre Dame. Yeah. Well, number 6 beat Notre Dame.
Yep. Because they're better team.
And stayed precisely where they were.
Right.
Notre Dame dropped out, of course, out of the top 10.
Yep.
Now, when you look at the coaches poll today and you look at the top 10, what are your thoughts on Cincinnati being in the number 3 spot? Demetrius?
It's a good question. I do believe in a strength of schedule sort of factor. Strength of schedule needs to be a variable, right? And so, but there's also they played the games that were in front of them, and all you can do when you look at the schedule is beat the team you got to play on that day. I think it washes out, right? We talked a lot about this. There are 2 spots at the top that we thought were locked in, right? Now it got interesting because all hell broke loose in College Station? I'm going to guess. Bill will correct me if I'm wrong.
You are correct.
Okay. All hell broke loose last Saturday in College Station. So now it's interesting. And I think that Cincinnati deserves to be where they are. They have done everything that they're supposed to do to this point, and they've earned it. I will not push back on Cincinnati being where they are. And And the beauty of it is they have to recognize them, and when the time comes, they'll run up against a team that they'll either beat and we'll go, okay, I'm convinced, or they won't, and we'll say, okay, we see what they are. That's the beauty of college football, right? At some point, you got to get on the field and you got to beat somebody else to show who you are. And so I love this time where we get to speculate, especially like my team's undefeated right now. I don't know how good they are. I know they're undefeated, and I'll fist fight somebody who tells me they don't deserve to be in the top 10 right now, right? So that's the beauty of college football. And nobody expected what happened in College Station to happen, but it did. So now it gets real fun because now it's all kinds of conversations, right? So yeah, I think Cincinnati deserves where they are. And we all agree Notre Dame was overrated because of the helmet they wear, the jersey they wear. But Cincinnati went out and beat them. And that's all Cincinnati could do was go out and beat them. And they did. So
do you agree with this top 10, this coaches poll of top 10?
Other than Michigan State should be higher. I don't have no, I'm saying. No. I think that's legit. There's good teams. This is a year I would love for those 8 teams. Because I love Georgia and I still like Alabama, but I'm starting to fall into that. Man, there might be 7 or 8 really good football teams, and on a given Saturday, who the hell knows? Right? This might be the year where the 4 is going to do us a disservice. But I like it. I can't. And there's still good games, particularly in my conference. There's still games to come. It'll all shake itself out. A mid-October top 25 can't generate a lot of emotion in me. It's fun, but yeah, I don't have any big issues.
Your thoughts on the coaches poll?
Yeah,
top 25.
So I just posted my top 25 because I don't get into the whole mystique and helmets and whatever. I watch a lot of, probably too much, college football, and I just say, if these teams were to play each other, who do I think would win? Right? It's very simple for me. I do have Michigan State number 7. I don't know if that satisfies you, Demetrius.
Of course.
But I think there's a bunch of teams that people don't talk about who are really good football teams, right? We don't talk enough about University of Texas San Antonio. There's a lot of teams they'd beat. SMU, a lot of teams that are ranked higher than SMU would not want to see SMU coming. That's a very good football team no one ever wants to talk about. I think that Pitt is a really good football team. I think a lot of teams would not want to see Pitt coming. Exactly. And, of course, I have an undying love for Coastal Carolina. Yeah. I think there's a bunch of teams they would hang an L on in the top 10 or so. A couple of teams, they have top 10 they would hang an L on. They have a chance against really anybody not named Alabama, Georgia.
Full stop.
Yeah, probably full stop. Right. Everybody else got a shot. Yeah. Has a shot against everybody else in the country. Right. So, yeah, I have Georgia number 1 and Oklahoma number 2, but like a slippery, like a lot could happen. They've been, as my father used to say, running between the raindrops and managed not to get wet. Either that will make them really good at dodging raindrops, or at some point they'll get wet. You know, we're going to get
wet. They're going to get wet. That's
right. At some point they'll get wet. So they'll move down, right? So Cincinnati, I have the number 4. They could easily move into the top, few, because the teams ahead of them are teams that have a chance. I mean, Georgia still has a chance to pick up a loss somewhere, right? Yep. Oklahoma keeps looking like they're going to lose a game. They've just managed to not quite do it yet.
Raindrops, yeah.
Right? Eventually. Iowa is a team that, once again, we talk about teams that are boring. They're very good in a very boring way. Nothing about Iowa blows you away. It goes, wow, man, woo. Like, even Cincinnati is a more interesting team to watch beat somebody than Iowa. Iowa kills you the same way a boa constrictor kills you, very slowly, right? Very slowly. They just crush the life out of
they wear those colors.
And they do wear those colors.
They're just lucky they don't have us on the schedule, because what we do well is exactly what they don't defend well.
Good point.
But we don't play them, so yeah.
Well, maybe, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of how. No, they wouldn't
see him in Indy. Maybe we'll see him in Indy.
I was going to say.
Right.
Maybe that's your championship game, right?
Yeah.
That might be. Michigan, somehow, the other school in the state whatever. Also, still somehow doesn't have a loss. Now, I think that will change soon.
October 30th. Yep.
Yeah, right. I think that will change soon.
That will change soon. Yes.
For some reason, no one's really talking about Kentucky. Now,
I know
they haven't played the meat of their schedule yet. But what if they win those games, right? What if they run the effing table? No one thinks they will, but what if they do, right? Now, what are we going to say about Kentucky? If Kentucky is an undefeated team in the SEC,
and then they'll go to Atlanta and play Georgia, right?
right, and that's when we'll finally find out just who they are, right? We'll know for sure at that point just who they are.
Who does Kentucky play this weekend?
Somebody they should beat. I can't remember which team now. Who is it again? I mean, not a pushover, but somebody they should beat.
Good, I'll look it up.
But they're not a joke. To Bill's point, Kentucky's a legitimate team.
People don't want to acknowledge them yet for whatever reason.
Right.
They're one big win away from everyone waking up to them. If they win that one big win, people go, "Oh, yeah, this team could just chug it along, beating everybody in front of them." But the heart of their schedule is just beginning, so we'll see. Oklahoma State, people, is also undefeated somehow, and no one wants to talk about that either. And what if they? I mean, why would I think this team can't beat Oklahoma? What about Oklahoma makes me think that they can't lose this game?
Gentlemen, Kentucky plays Georgia Saturday.
We are playing Georgia. Okay,
so
really? This is the big game. This is the big game. Okay, here it is. This is the big game. The game where we'll find out if this team is for real or not. Okay, so
nice.
So if they win this game, right, which I would love because I love the chaos. If they win this game, now, right, everything is, left is right and up is down. I love it. I hope that happens because now people will have to reconcile, right? They have to push Kentucky up. Georgia will not fall very far, because I think Kentucky is a top 10 team. I mean, I have number 8. So they slide down a few notches. They're probably still in the fight for the playoffs. So maybe they slide down to 4. Cincinnati slides up to 3. And to me, what happens in Oklahoma? So yes, I love it. I love that. And let me mention one other team that they're undefeated. No one seem to even acknowledge are undefeated. Wake Forest, just where Mr. Walker III got his degree from, right?
They didn't need him, right?
Apparently not.
Right, they're still good.
And they have some of the best wide receivers in the country. No one's talking about Ja'Cory. Where are you, Ja'Cory? If you hear me, you're a monster. Ja'Cory Roberson is an absolute monster. People are not talking about it enough. He is going to be a very good professional wide receiver. That guy is a monster. No one's talking about Wake Forest. They could run the table in the ACC. What's the game that has them shaking in their boots in the ACC?
Right. There isn't one. And that's the beauty. We're just chit-chatting, and we just ran off 3 massive games, right? Georgia and Kentucky coming up. Oklahoma State, Michigan State, right? That's what's so beautiful about this. And I do like where you have Pitt, by the way. Pat Narduzzi's doing a fantastic job over there, and I'm glad he's getting some props for it. And then there's so many more games. Eventually, Michigan and Ohio State are going to get together. Eventually, we're gonna have Penn State come to East Lansing. There's some great games across this thing, man. It's so good.
Gentlemen, talking about great games and all that, we know that we have crowds back in a lot of the stadiums, but LSU has removed its COVID-19 protocols for the fans as of this weekend, which probably means we'll see some of the other colleges follow suit. Of course, my leanings here, I think of Florida, I think of Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, a lot of those places where mask mandates were never in place, so forth and so on. So, what's your thoughts on? I don't know what does LSU Stadium, what does Tiger Stadium hold, Bill? As far as I know, and I'm sure it's more than this, but we had and this was for a fight down here in Texas. We had 87,000 for a fight. So uh, I'm sure what LSU is, what, 700,000 maybe.
It's not quite 700,000 because just so you know, Baton Rouge itself, if they took everybody in the town and all the students and poured them all in there, you would get there. But it does hold 102,231. It's number 3, I think, in total capacity amongst college football stadiums. It's big. It's big, really big.
Well, hey, come on now. The LSU with everybody within 10 miles at LSU Stadium, I'm sure, has a tailgate party, a pickup barbecue, a grits and grits. Well, anyway, go ahead. But I mean, this is almost. Well, no, cribbing after dark. Yeah, this is almost similar to a cross burning back in the day, man. Everybody attends.
This is okie doke, though. This is another attempt. If LSU was 6-0 instead of 3-3, they wouldn't be worried about it. This is some okie doke. Hey, don't look at our records. We love you. Don't kill us because we're 3-3 at the bottom of the SEC. This is okie doke. I'm not falling. You're not getting me with the banana in the tailpipe. It ain't happening. Nope. That's all this is. And or maybe it's just we're after dark. Maybe it's Louisiana being Louisiana. I don't know. I don't want to sound like a Northern superior, they're not as smart as me guy. But then again, they do shit like this. So what am I supposed to say? I don't know. I think it's okie doke. I think they're trying to take the attention off the fact that they're a 3-3 football team.
Yeah, well, a winning record would, like you said, SEC. Well, go ahead. Let's talk about the LSU and the COVID first, Bill. Go ahead.
I think we totally interrupted Bill. Hijacked.
No, I mean, I would love for this to not end up being a thing, but everything inside me says this is going to be a thing, like a bad thing. Louisiana already was one of the states that was not exactly killing it. Probably not the great use of words there, but not exactly doing a great job in terms of stemming the tide when it came to COVID-19 already. This feels just like an awful idea, frankly, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope there is no massive surge or outbreak or whatever. I hope that it ends up being either minor or nothing at all. But I've gone to football games during the COVID-19 pandemic, and I've always been very careful about, I always do it early in the season and at places where I know it's not going to be a sellout, and I make sure there's plenty of space around me and I wear my mask. And even then, I'm nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. So I cannot imagine that in this part of the country where they haven't fully embraced, I think would be the most fair way to put it, all of the possible safety protocols. To remove the possible safety protocols just feels counterproductive.
Yeah. How very Florida of you, Louisiana. what are we doing? I don't know.
Okay, gentlemen, let's talk about what happened last Saturday. Alabama goes down.
Yes.
Shit happens, or what happened here? Everyone was, had Alabama number 1 going to the college championships.
Some of us said that we thought Alabama was down. Now, we felt foolish after saying that because I came in preseason. I don't know if you watched my little YouTube channel or whatever, but I kept saying Alabama was down this year, right? I focused on the defense. I said this is not going to be one of Saban's classic Alabama defenses. They're going to be an explosive offense, but to give up points, and they can be had particularly via the big play. If you're just trying to get 4 yards in a cloud of dust, you're playing into the strengths of their defense. They do still have a big, powerful, athletic defensive line, but they don't have that shutdown corner. That guy that they'll probably have some guys that get overdrafted, But the guys that they've had in the past in their secondary that were legitimate, they don't have that guy. There's not a Marlon Humphreys back there, right? That guy isn't on the team. And we're used to just saying they're going to reload, blah, blah, blah. But even Alabama, at some point, at certain positions, can get, depleted. That they do not have a great secondary. Their linebacker core is interesting and athletic, but not always going in the right direction. Not always doing the right things. Like they're I don't know how to put it. They almost seem frenetic at times, like trying to get there, but not always going in the right place. Not always going in the right direction. This is still they're going to have, they can make big plays on defense. They can, they can get sacks and strip sacks, and they can blow you up in the backfield, especially on slow developing run plays and things like that. Like, don't get rid of your slow developing run plays against Alabama. Like, why would you do that anyway? Screens, draws, yes. Bring out your screens and draws. They can be had. Double moves, if you can keep your quarterback upright long enough, they can be had on double moves. I mean, listen to me now and hear me later, as used to say on we're going to pump you up. But listen to me now, and Hans and Franz, shout out to them.
Yeah.
Listen to me now and hear me later. You can get double moves against this secondary. You can. Those curl and goes, those hook and goes, those stutter goes, all those little double moves you've been saving, you can break them out. Once again, as long as you can protect your quarterback long enough, there's big plays to be had. This is not a great defense. I know it says Alabama. I know they're wearing the colors, and there's Coach Saban on the sidelines, but it's not one of his defenses. And he would tell you that. This is not – he would tell you this is not one of my vintage defenses. He would tell you this straight up. He would agree with me when it comes to that. It's not out of the question they could pick up another loss this year. Yep. I'm saying it. They're not impenetrable. They're not unbeatable. This team could lose another game.
I agree. I think that you have to think about what they lost last year, right? So they were a juggernaut last year. They lost like 7 guys in the first couple rounds.
Yep.
Think about the players that they lost, and even they still kind of reloaded the offense. But they lost 2 receivers. They lost probably the best corner, arguably the best corner in the draft. They lost their quarterback, the starting running back. Yep. Leatherwood's a great offensive lineman. Christian Barmore. They lost so much. So they're still a really, really good team. They're just not Alabama. They're not the Alabama we're used to. To Bill's point, I think they're taking another L. That's how I feel about Alabama. And I have consistently said Georgia seems like the class of that league. And I still think that, right? Now, Kentucky, we'll see what Kentucky does with Georgia. Might prove my point this week, or I might be coming back like it's a baseball game going, I'm sorry, I was wrong again. We'll see. But I think it should be a good game. But Alabama, we all felt like, even the pundits, the Feinbaums, this is not that kind of Alabama. Yep. It's a good Alabama team. They're still wearing the red and white jerseys, but it's not that kind of Alabama. So I think it's a combination of shit happening because Texas A&M did all the things that you can do against this Alabama team, and they did them well. And they did them timely. Yep. And, Jimbo just got 5 more years on his contract, even if he does absolutely nothing else. So I think it was a combination of that night. Their opponent played a game that was capable of beating an Alabama team that maybe wasn't as focused as it should have been, but also maybe they're just a really good team and not Alabama, as we like. I mean, you say Alabama and it's assumed untouchable greatness. Bill used the term impenetrable. That's perfect. That's how you when you say Alabama, that's what you generally think. This is not that Alabama team. This is a team that plays in Tuscaloosa, but they're not quite that Alabama team.
Guys, I remember we had another conversation on this show about Texas and Oklahoma and teams moving over to the all-powerful SEC, like the Wizard of Oz, this great, scary conference. Demetrius, the SEC this, the SEC that.
Yep.
But I see 5 Big Ten teams in the top 10.
Yep. And it is not a joke. It is not a joke. I was never that guy with SEC. I came on here and said the Big Ten should go talk to the ACC and the Pac-12 and make super conference, right? I don't even know if we need to. I think we're fine. Now I've changed my mind. Screw them. We don't need anybody. Right? Right. Typically, right. But we have, and these are not just good football teams. These are programs. They're not going anywhere. Mel Tucker's not leaving soon. We're going to stay good. Kirk Ferentz is one of the best who does this. Kirk Ferentz is criminally underrated as a coach. Yep. And he's getting guys to come to Iowa City, Iowa. It's Iowa. You guys been to Iowa? Right? James Franklin is, in my opinion, will likely leave Penn State at some point. He's really good, and they're going to come after him. He should stay there. I wouldn't be surprised with that. I don't talk about the other school, but Ohio State is Ohio State, right? And I even the other school, they're good. We're gonna bust that ass October 30th, but they're good. I'm not saying they're not good. I think the Big Ten's for real, and even teams we're not talking about. Indiana's not playing up to their capability. I'm not even looking at October 30th because we got a business trip to Bloomington this week that is not going to be as easy as we think. Right. But I believe we're that good. We're going to go take care of business. There's no weeks off. There's no weeks off in this conference. There's good teams. You sleep on Rutgers and they'll hand you your lunch if you there's some good teams in this league. And I think that I don't know why. SEC is glamour, ACC, whatever. We don't care though. We've always been that. I don't think we ever care. I mean, I just don't. But yeah, I am excited, not just because my team is one of those 5, and rightfully so. It's going to make for a great October and November. There's some games in the next 4 weeks, man. Next 5 weeks. There's some really good games. And they're all happening in a handful of states in the north. And I'm excited about it.
You guys all talked about, there's a possibility Alabama might get another loss.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at, the schedule of some of these other teams. Gentlemen, do you think a 2 or 3 loss team can make it to the CFP?
Well, I mean, the answer should be no, because by my math, there's going to be at least I think there'll be at least one undefeated team, and maybe more than one undefeated team. Now, unless you just hate that team, right? That team deserves some consideration, right? Now, obviously, if it is UT San Antonio, I understand they're not going to get the shot. But if Cincinnati is undefeated or Wake Forest is undefeated, how do you keep them out, right? So,
San Diego State is undefeated too. If you want,
right? Not only do I know they're undefeated, okay. There's 5 or 6 players on that team I would love to talk about, but you probably don't want me to do that now. They first of all, let me just say this real quickly. There is no better defensive back coach in football than the one they have at San Diego State. But let me get back to what we were talking about. Oh, okay. So there's going to be at least 1, possibly 2 undefeated teams. Yeah. Somebody's going to win the ACC, and unless they have a gazillion losses, I don't know how they wouldn't be in. Somebody's going to win the Big Ten, right? That's 2 spots at the dance that are probably going to be filled. The Pac-12 might end up getting shut out. We talked about that before. So their best chance was Oregon, and if Oregon needs to have a clean run from this point forward, obviously, for the Pac-12 to have a shot. Once again, if Cincinnati runs the table, there's no way you can keep them out. How are you going to get more than one SEC school in? This is not the year if the SEC gets more than one school in.
But is this a year that we could possibly have 2 Big Ten teams?
Yes, this is possibly that year. So,
but they won't have 2. They won't have 2 losses. There'll be 2 1-loss teams,
or
undefeated and a 1-loss. Yeah.
Yep.
No, that was just building on to his question. That that had nothing to do with the original.
Oh, gotcha.
But,
yeah.
But I had to get that in for the Big Ten. I mean, I represent. So
I think you could make a case that if Ohio State and Iowa end up in the Big, which I don't hope, or an undefeated Iowa and a 1-loss Ohio State end up in Indy, and Ohio State wins a close game, I could see both of them going. If Iowa's only loss is to Ohio State in Indy and it's a close game, I make a case they deserve to go over a 2-loss Alabama or some other 2-loss team. I think they've earned that. So That's the beauty, though. It all shakes out. It's going to shake out.
All right, gentlemen. Boy, I'm gonna give you guys a whole lot to talk about here because we're gonna talk about John Gruden. That's gonna be my first topic in the NFL.
Woo!
So, everybody talks about, well, it was back in 2011 or whatever date it was.
Yes, back in 2011. Remember
back.
those days? Way back in 2011 when nobody was bothered by racism, homophobia, sexism.
Right. And I mean, I kind of, once again, I'm going to show, my age and my ignorance all at the same time. But it's kind of like my neighbor that before the election, he had a Trump sign in his yard. Well, he took it down now, but it was still there. I mean, it might not be visible, but I know how this man thinks, or at least I have to presume that by his actions. If you put a Trump flag, if you put a Confederate flag, I mean, I have to assume that you think in those particular forms. Otherwise, you would not have those symbols in your yard or displayed on your vehicle or whatever. So, I think we had who was that Sunday that said the guy that worked with John Gruden on Monday Night Football,
Tirico.
right? That he had never seen or thought that John Gruden had a racist bone in his body. So perhaps that's true because we're talking about what he wrote, not necessarily his bones. So I'm more concerned about what he's thinking. Damn his bones. I mean, we can put a cast on those, but when you possess a certain type of thought and you pursue that type of thinking, when do you turn that faucet off? So anyway, enough about me. It's about you guys and your thoughts.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts? And as someone that deals a lot in communications, Bill, let's start with you here. I mean, hey, it was a long time ago.
Take your time. Take your time, Bill. I'm actually deferring my John Gruden. I'm deferring my John Gruden stuff to my final thoughts. So take as much time as you want. This is all yours.
Just so you know, we're all doing John Gruden in our final thoughts today. He's getting final thoughted up like,
right?
It's gonna be. He's catching from every angle tonight, as he ought to. So I'm gonna start with one. What's the old saying? Disappointed but not surprised.
Yep.
I have been a graduate assistant at the University of Illinois and a player who shall remain nameless, but if you really think hard, you might figure out who it is. I met him at an alumni event a few years back at University of Illinois, talked about things, talked about his career, talked about what he's getting into. And I asked him about the Super Bowl years. And he had some things to say about Coach Gruden, and most of them were not exactly complimentary. And amongst other things, he said that he's a guy that will smile in your face and stab you in the back. He mentioned that to me specifically, that he's a guy who will say one thing and do another. A guy who had definite favorites on the team and didn't like certain types of people on his team. Not to say that you were black, but you were a certain kind of black person. He seemed to have a problem with you. I'll put it that way. What else? Oh, so many things. Yeah. He used to like to pit people against each other, right? He was the kind of person that used to like to get stuff started. He was is it After Dark officially? I think it is.
Yes.
The term he used was shit stirrer.
Yep.
That was the actual term used. He said he was a shit stirrer. He liked to instigate stuff, like to get things going, like to get people agitated, that kind of thing. He liked to stir the pot. all that good stuff, right?
Sounds
The
like a
person,
drill sergeant to me, but go ahead.
some of that, and I think he sees himself that kind of way too. Some of the guys, so the gentleman with whom I spoke said that he thought they would have won anyway under Dungy if Dungy had not been fired. He felt very strongly that Coach Dungy, got a raw deal on that, and that he should have a Super Bowl ring from Tampa Bay. But whatever. The point is that he's been basically dining out on that Super Bowl ring he got with a team that was built already, right, when he gets there. And he did do one really great thing, one really impressive, not even impressive, important. He did one really important thing, and that was retain a really great knowledge of the team they were going to face in Super Bowl's offensive schemes, checks, and audibles. And they were so arrogant, stupid, or both that they didn't make changes to those things.
Right.
And so he gave them everything. He gave one of the great defenses of the last 50 years everything that the other team was going to do. And the other team was so stupid / arrogant, they didn't even make changes. So he was the scout team quarterback. I don't know how many of you may know this, but he actually was the scout team quarterback. He ran the Oakland Raiders offense himself. This is obviously when he was a younger man, but he did all the stuff. He did all of the favorite things that Rich Gannon liked to do and all that stuff. He laid it out for them. They felt like they'd already played the game. By the time they went on the field, it was as if they had been told everything about the other team. And so that game turned out exactly how anybody who knew anything about football knew it would turn out, right? I mean, it was a what's the word? Ass kicking. That's the word. It was an ass kicking.
That's what it looked like.
And as well as should have been. So I'll give him credit for that. He's helped to set up the kicking of that ass. But everything else, he's been given so much credit for, this offensive genius, this offensive innovator, all this other stuff. Look at the actual offenses he's had as a head coach and what they've done under this genius, right? I just think he's always been wildly overrated, first of all, just as an actual X's and O's guy, right? I think he's always been a somewhat duplicitous, self-serving. How far after dark are we now?
Far enough for you to say asshole. I know.
Yes. He's always been a self-serving, duplicitous asshole. And people are just now figuring that out, I guess. Well, some people are just now figuring that out, but a lot of people knew that already. A lot of people who played for him definitely knew that. And Keyshawn Johnson deservedly has been popping wheelies on people all the last few weeks. Like, remember what I told you? Remember when I told you this? Stun on them. Let them know, Keyshawn. Tell them no. Tell them all about it. Yes. All that stuff you said was true about him. Yes. Thank you. I wasn't shocked. Somewhat disappointed, more in the level of stupidity, frankly. But I knew a lot of this stuff about him already.
Well,
and
now,
go
Go ahead.
If anyone else would like to pile on, feel free. I've said my piece.
I'm saving mine. Go for it.
No, Demetrius, because I'm not gonna let you save it all because
All right.
a lot of these emails went to the Washington football team.
Bruce Allen, to be specific.
Yeah, exactly.
And this was during the time when, of course, Mr. Snyder he wasn't there. But if he's writing them to Snyder, I have to think that there has to be somewhat of a syndrome there. How did Dan?
The term I use is fellow traveler. Yes.
Yeah.
Fellow traveler.
How did Dan even get the team back? Or are we going to see more repercussions against the Washington football team?
Oh yeah, hell yeah. There's so much more to come. It's ridiculous. But okay, so I'll touch kind of in the area you're talking about. There is this thing that I wish I could remember who told me. But the title, the phrase they used was loving accountability. And it was my brother. And he said, here's the deal. I can't let you walk out of the house with a booger hanging out of your nose. I can't let you do that. Right? If I see it, I got to pull you aside. No matter how uncomfortable it is, I got to say, yo, take care of business, right? How are people getting these emails and we don't see the response email from Bruce Allen that says, bro, what are you doing? Right? Even if it's, don't put this in an email. In a perfect world, it's more than that. It is, why in the blue hell are you saying something like that?
Yep.
In what world do you not know that a reference to the lips of an African American person, and that's like an old school like racial slur. That's like the old man on his porch in black socks of racial slurs, yelling at kids to get off his grass. He went deep, right? That's in you. You didn't just.
He went real deep.
He went deep, right? Because the idea of this. So then he tries to okie doke me. And you guys know how I feel.
He went Lyndon Johnson deep.
He did. He did. You try and okie doke me by saying, hey, I have a heretofore unheard of term called rubber lips that I use for people that lie. Wait, you do? And you're telling me you've been using this for years and not a single black person in your circle said, my man, I'm going to need you to find a different term, right? Or guess what, John Gruden? I challenge you publicly, release one email, one video, one phone call of you using any kind of descriptor to describe the lips of a white man. Just one. Where you said a white dude had the lips like a tire. It's so many layers here. You called that man Dub Morris. D. Smith has a JD from the University of Virginia, guys, right? For those who are listening and don't know what a JD is, that's a law degree, right? You know what he's not? He's not dumb. He might be a lot of things. D. Smith ain't dumb, right? So there's so many layers here where I'm like, where were your friends being your friends? Where was the loving accountability from Bruce Allen or someone to say, dude, you're a 58-year-old white man. I guess it's okay that you're a racist, sexist, homophobe. I guess, who doesn't care about the brains of the players that pay your $100 million salary. I guess it's okay that you're that. Don't put it in an email. What are you doing? This is traceable. Somebody's going to see this. He doesn't have friends who care enough about him to stop him from being the asshole he clearly is. We all need a good friend. We all need a friend, right? We hold each other accountable for mispronouncing names on the Sports Script. Right? That's how we do it. And that's loving accountability. If I say something stupid, I not only expect, I want, it is Bill's obligation to go, yo, that is not where that dude went to school. Right? I'm not going to be hurt because I'd rather be right. I'd rather the right information be out. So if I sit here and say some dude went to some school, I often say, if I'm wrong, Bill will correct me because Bill doesn't know it. That's his job. I might slip up. Fully expect Bill not to let me walk out the door with a booger in my nose. Where the hell were his friends? Right? So much of it is shameful and ridiculous. To Bill's point, I'm not shocked that a 58-year-old white man from North Central Ohio happens to be a racist, sexist, homophobe. I know people from that region. It ain't that uncommon. It's not. No, you're from Youngstown, so that's technically what.
And Canfield, Ohio, is the head of, which is they have a big fair there. Canfield, Ohio, is like a suburb of Youngstown.
Oh yeah,
but that is also the head of the northeastern Clavin of the Ku Klux Klan of Ohio.
Used to speed through that area on my way to a nice casino in West Virginia. I speed right through that place. I'm not stopping here.
Of course not.
Right. So there's a degree of an acceptance of this behavior, right? And his friends will say something like, "That's just John being John." Well, I mean, it turns out John's kind of an asshole, you know. And you can be that. There's no law that says you can't be an a-hole in America. I'm actually fine. I don't even care that much that it turns out John Gruden's an a-hole. I don't even care. That doesn't bother me. I am shocked. No. Am I shocked? Yeah, I'm shocked that he would try and perpetrate an okie doke like that on people like us. Because it's like, for you to dig that deep and get such a deep, harmful, but I'm not even sensitive to that. And, you know, interracial marriage, mixed race son, I've heard it all, seen it all. None of that shit bothers me. I'm way past that. There's a higher level that certain people operate on that I find it amazing. The entitlement. That's what it is. The entitlement that he clearly has. He was so audacious. He just wrote it in emails. Didn't care. You know what kind of audacity it takes to write that about D. Smith? Forget the inaccuracy of the fact that D. Smith is brilliant and by all accounts a good dude. And you go deep to a early 40s, 50s racial trope, and then stand last week at a press conference and say, "I'm not a racist. Nah, this is a word I made up to describe." What is the hat, James? What is this wet stuff all over my hat? And he's like, "It's raining, bro." No, it's not raining, man. There's so many layers to it that blow my mind. Not necessarily surprised, like I said, that a 58-year-old white dude's a racist, sexist, homophobe. That's not shocking. The audacity, the entitlement, right? The lack of friends who will demonstrate loving accountability for this man. And this is just the beginning, because I think there's a shitstorm coming at Bruce Allen. We know Dan Snyder's got the business. They're already interviewing new owners for the football team. We all know that. They're lining up because the mistake he made was in one of those emails, he got after Raj. You were fine just talking about D. Smith. You talked about Raj. You don't mess with Goodell. then it's a wrap. So I think it's deserved. Everybody, he's really a good guy. And Tirico, I didn't see that. Great, Tirico. He was sitting across from a black dude that could kick his ass. Of course you didn't hear it. That's how that works. He sends that to his buddy Bruce Allen in the email. He doesn't say that to you on the set of Monday Night Football. And by the way, where's the accountability from ESPN? Dude worked for you the whole time he was doing this nonsense. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna need y'all to step up and say something. But yeah, there's so many layers to it that's it's. Well, the audacity and the entitlement is the biggest thing to me. I'm stuck.
You talk about the audacity and so many layers. Don't you think that this has some effect on the ineffectiveness that we have all called out for the Rooney Rule?
So I think the Rooney Rule, I like the Rooney Rule as it's written. Much like a lot of things, something looks great on paper, but if the people responsible for executing it don't execute it appropriately, then it doesn't work, right? And so my own team was probably guilty of this at one point, like with Matt Millen. Now, this past time, they did it perfectly, right? Yep. I think that if you put a loophole, the people who don't want to follow it aren't going to follow it, and guys will find a way. And really, it's about getting guys interviews, right? And then you got to go in like Brad Holmes did and blew the lines away. By all account, they interviewed Louis Riddick and a couple other guys. So they interviewed like 12 people. But what they said was, when Brad Holmes sat down, we were blown away. That's what the Rooney Rule really is. Give a guy a chance to blow you away. And if you interview 5 black dudes and none of them blow you away and you want to hire, fine. But if you're going to do a Jerry and you just like Mike McCarthy, cool. I know you interviewed you were hiring Mike McCarthy. We knew that. The Davis kid, I don't know his first name. I can't remember it. Al Davis's son that runs Mark Davis. You deserve to get fleeced out of all the money he has fleeced you out of. God don't like ugly, and that's what happened there, right? You gave that man $100 million, and it turns out you didn't know him as well as you thought. So the Rooney Rule is fine on paper, but any rule on paper is only as good as the people who are executing it. If people want to find a loophole and a workaround, they will. And if the league, and by all accounts, I think the numbers suggest the Rooney Rule has worked. Black coaches have gotten a lot more opportunities, but there's some like Todd Bowles should be a head coach. Todd Bowles is brilliant. Jim Caldwell should have never been fired by us. I think the next step of the Rooney Rule is we get fired real quick, right? We get fired real quick, and other guys don't. So I think it's you could put harsh penalties on the Rooney Rule if you want. You could have fined Mark Davis. You could have taken draft picks if you really want to enforce it. And I think they're trying. But then we don't want gifts either, though. We don't want gifts.
But I'm thinking in the content of these emails, when you look at how people are portrayed, like you said, like DeMarcus, for instance, how he's portrayed, even though this man has a law degree. He certainly isn't dumb. But what I'm saying when I mentioned the Rooney Rule is the attitude of these enablers like John Gruden, where uh, someone like Jim Caldwell is fired and someone that is not, just because of uh, in politics we call it the old boy network.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what it is. That's still a club.
In business and in everything else. Yes.
Yeah.
It's in every part of our society.
Yep.
So, guys, I know everybody was watching football this weekend, so I kind of thought because our little one here, he's his father's a Brazilian soccer player, so we always tease him that even though he's only 2, this on the 22nd, as soon as he turns 2, he will have a Pittsburgh Steelers football, and he will have a little kicking tee. So, you know, uh, figure we might as well. Yeah, if you can't kick a soccer ball, maybe you can kick a football. But anyway, the object is to keep your ass upright and not having to, end up like me and Bill in your later stages of your life, wondering why you stuck your head in there to make that tackle. But anyway, so uh, the the title of this is "Mama, Don't Let Your Son Grow Up to Be a Cowboy." It's so much easier to learn to be a kicker,
Right.
and we saw the field goals that were missed this weekend. If a good field goal would have sent the Ravens down, and they wouldn't have the, beat the Colts in overtime. We saw 4 attempts uh, by one of the best kickers, Crosby,
Yeah.
for Green Bay. He misses 3 in a row, but luckily gets a chance to kick a 4th one to beat the Bungles. So
Right, because their kicker also missed one. Yes.
right, so guys, I mean, kicker was something that we used to consider automatic. A kicker missed 2 field goals in the game, he's in the unemployment line next week. What's going on with kickers this season? And it's early in the season. We've had almost, as a matter of fact, I believe we've had more kicks missed than we've had games played.
Well, this particular weekend, this last weekend, now the records haven't been always kept forever, so they're still sort of digging. But certainly since the merger, there hasn't been that many missed combinations of both field goals and extra points together. This past weekend was the most post the NFL AFL merger. That much we do know, and they're still checking to see how far back it may have been the last time that number of kicks was missed. Well, first of all, remember when they decided to move back the extra point, right? That was to put some excitement back in it. Because at one point, the extra point was being hit at 99.3 or something is what it was. I think at one point, the high water mark. And they decided to, put a little sauce back in it by pushing it back. I mean, you can't do something to make something happen and then be surprised when the thing that you wanted to happen happens, right? I mean, wasn't that the whole point of moving back the extra point?
But how many years ago was that? We had to wait until now for it to happen?
Well, I mean, there was an uptick immediately. There was an uptick in missed extra points immediately, though. I mean, it just this particular weekend was special. The number going into this weekend was only slightly above the norm until this weekend. And then this weekend was crazy, right? So the number of missed kicks was a little bit above the norm prior to this weekend. This weekend has skewed everything, James. This past weekend, not this weekend, but the weekend past. Now, here's one thing that people forget. One is it's much harder than people realize. That's the first thing I'm remembering. I remember the last time I attempted a place kick. It was embarrassing, right? I've been around football much of my life. At one point I could punt reasonably well. Not great, but I could get off a 30-something plus yard punt. You'd hang around practice. You would, watch whoever the punter was. I think I could do that. You'd shank 4 or 5, and then you'd be like, oh, okay, I'm dropping it too late or I'm dropping it too early. You'd figure it out. And place kicking is a whole different animal. I could place kick 100 times and still be awful. I don't think people realize how hard it is. Has anyone here ever even attempted a place kick?
Yeah. And I'm with you 1,000%. It is ridiculous. It's so difficult.
Harder than
right. And my hamstring was mad at me for 4 or 5 days afterwards. Right. Because I decided not to get flexible and limber up. I'm just gonna roll up. I'm gonna roll up here and knock. It was 22 yards. I was at the 12-yard line. And I think I hit the bottom of the goal post. I might have gotten that thing 14 or 15 yards. It had zero chance of going in. There was so much discipline and technique and consistency and focus and concentration. People say stuff like hitting a baseball is the hardest thing to do. That's probably true. Kicking a field goal is top 5. Sorry. I think Bill nailed it. People underestimate how difficult it is. It is super hard. Super hard. And this weekend was the aberration. I really don't have a lot to add. I'm just going to reiterate what he said. This weekend was the aberration. Field goals, the number is relatively consistent over 20 years.
Yep.
Right? Good kickers make field goals inside of 50 at a quite a high rate.
Ridiculously high rate.
At a really high rate, because that's what they do. This was an aberration. And it's cool to talk about the aberration. It probably won't be a missed field goal this weekend, right? It'll all come back. It levels out. But if your kid can be a kicker, it's easy money. If he's good, right? It's good money. It's like be a left-handed pitcher. You don't have to be great. You have to be okay. You can be a left-handed pitcher and make some money. Kicking is hard. And by the way, nobody's missing field goals against the damn Lions. What the hell is that about? Why doesn't somebody miss one against the Lions? What kind of crap is that? There you go, 66. Let's set a record. Let's see if we can hit the crossbar and flip it. Sure, why not? Yeah, nobody's missing against us.
Yeah. Oh man. Let's see. The Washington football team retires number 21, Demetrius. Took him a long time, didn't it?
Yeah, so here we go again. I know I've been saying this a lot, and I love my grandmother. Rest in peace, Granny. Another okie doke. This is another okie doke. Come on, you don't announce this on Thursday that we doing this on. Now, all due respect, Sean Taylor, 5th pick overall in, help me, Bill, 05, 04 maybe. One of those two. Played 4 years, I'm going to say, and senselessly, tragically was killed in what I think was a home invasion. But as much as I can remember. I didn't do a lot of research.
It was.
Home invasion, right? But beloved by teammates, by all accounts, respected, produced. His trajectory was limitless. I mean, in as much as you can take 4 years of data, Sean Taylor was going to be a Hall of Famer. I might be ridiculous. Bill will correct me if I'm wrong. But this is not something you announce on Thursday that you're doing on Sunday. You plan this out. You plan this out a year in advance. You announce this at the beginning of the year. Hey, on this day in October, we're retiring Sean Taylor's jersey. Hey, this day in November, we're doing this. This person's going to Ring of Honor. You plan this months in advance, and you do this months in advance. But guess what's happening right now with the Washington Football Club, right? Yes. So let's get some goodwill. This was shoddy. And again, the okie doke, in case I didn't define it earlier, is when you tell me, according to James, the wetness I feel on my hat is rain, when in fact you're peeing on my head. Right? This is okie doke. Don't try and trick me. You could just be. I mean, I wouldn't like it if you were straight up about it. Like, we're going through a lot of crap right now. We think we're gonna retire. You can't do that. Realistically, you can't do that. I would respect you more if you did that. But trying to convince me that this has been in the works and you shoddily throw it together in 3 days and you announce it today in the midst of all this, that reeks of okie doke. And I could be wrong. I'm not even saying I have any evidence or any proof. But the Sports Crib is not about evidence or proof for the most part. It's just about fun. So it reeks of okie doke to me. If I'm wrong, cool. Still needs to happen. I'm glad they're doing it. Sean Taylor deserves it. But man, does it reek of okie doke.
Bill, it's all about timing, right? It's the difference.
So
it's the difference between pass interference and a completed pass, right? It's all about
As
the timing.
anybody who has studied the art of prestidigitation will tell you, the most important part of sleight of hand is misdirection, right? So if you want people to start looking over here, you give them something to watch over there, right? Sean Taylor, as was mentioned, was tragically cut down the age of 24, was on his way to being one of the greatest defensive football players, let alone
Barry Bonds, gentlemen. Barry Bonds is at the game, still nothing.
Okay. Was on his way to being one of the greats of all time, right? People will always talk about that hit on Brian Moorman at the Pro Bowl forever, right? The last hard hit maybe we'll ever see in Pro Bowl history, at least from this point going forward. He had everything: size, speed, very high football IQ. He's a ball hawk. He was a thumper who could come down and rock you in the box. I mean, he could do everything. Basically, he was Derwin James, but more violent.
Right.
It's still Jerome Brown. There's a few guys that I still get sad all over again when I think about Joe Delaney. When I think about them, right? Sean Taylor is right near the top of that list of guys that get sad all over again when I think about how early we lost them, how senselessly we lost them. Yeah. However, this is it's a travesty mockery. It's a travesty mockery.
I love it.
I would love for them to do this the right way, and this ain't it. This ain't it. I don't know how else to put it. It should be on an anniversary date. It should be on a date where they've had a chance to publicize this for months leading up to it. It should be a nationally televised game. It should be a night game. There's all these things that it should be if you're going to do this for real. As opposed to, it's getting warm in here. What can we do to cool it off? Because that's what it feels like, right? I mean, that's 100% what it feels like. They're just trying to turn down the heat. The Mounties are on your trail. The Bloodhounds have gotten the whiff. I mean, I don't know what you think this is going to do, but such a great player. I just wish they were doing this the right way.
And you know, Bill, there was a meeting. It's probably a Zoom call like the one you just got off of. It was a Zoom call. And somebody was like, hey, what can we do? And some guy was like, the stupid dude over in the corner, let's do a bobblehead night. Let's do a Taylor Heineke bobblehead night. Now, you sit down, go get us some coffee. You know what you're doing. And somebody was like, hey, I got it. Sean Taylor retirement. And they were like, yes, they will never think about that other stuff if we do this. What is it? Prestidigitation?
Prestidigitation.
I have to admit, I've never used that word, but I will. I will going forward. That is classic prestidigitation. Love it.
Stephen Jones, not Stephen A. Smith, ironically, maybe it's just the word Stephen that, these type of things just kind of fall out their mouth. I don't know. But anyways, Stephen Jones says that there are similarities in the 2021 Cowboys and the Cowboys of the early 90s. Now, I know I wear glasses, and I mean they're not cheap. These are not 2 for $39, and they're not veteran issued. But they had the little, they changed colors and all that good stuff. Had the bifocal lens that blend in. But I looked all day. I went back on YouTube. I looked at what they showed the Sunday's game on ESPN, and for the life of me, I didn't see none of those similarities. I mean, anybody see Charles Handley last Sunday? I didn't. I mean, but anyway, like I said, maybe it's just me. Your thoughts, Demetrius?
So the short answer is when we want to, and just a selfish side note, my personal podcast is called the Cornbread and Kool-Aid Podcast. And I tell people all the time, I drink blue Kool-Aid every day. I love that football team, other side, so much that I don't see objectively. I don't profess to. I don't try to. I don't care about objectivity. The way I look at that football team is it's an illness. I don't know if it's named. There's an illness to it, right? And I think Stephen Jones is Jerry's son, in case people don't know. I think he's the GM now, or he's important, but Jerry still makes the calls. Here's the thing. I look under quarterback, and while Dak Prescott is playing very good football, that ain't Troy Aikman. I look in the backfield, and Ezekiel Elliott's a really good running back. You know what he's not? He is not Emmitt Smith. And you can add up Gallup, Westbrook, and Amari Cooper. I ain't calling none of them playmaker. I'm not calling the combined forces of all three of them. Michael Irvin was special, like different kind of special. Michael Irvin, like high point balls, route running, locker room. And I'm not a Dallas fan, by the way. But no, I didn't see Charles Haley. And I think Diggs is a good corner. He ain't prime. What do we? Oh, I don't know if we count prime on those teams. Prime might have still been in Atlanta then. But I think this is when you want something. I did a preseason podcast about the Lions and said they were going to win 8 games. You can convince yourself of anything if you eat enough cornbread and you drink enough Kool-Aid. You can make yourself see whatever you want. I see some way the Lions are going to beat the Bengals this week. That shit's not happening. We all know that. But when you want to see it, you can see it. And he's vested. He is vested, like super vested. And they're a good football team. I'm not putting them down. The early 90s team beats this team 10 times out of 10 times with an average margin of 17 points. That early 90s team was special on both sides of the football. This is that's I don't know. I don't know what he's doing. That's just my opinion. And some of that's just bitterness that the Lions are 0-5. But Stephen Jones sees what Stephen Jones wants to see. I don't see it. I'll put my glasses on for a minute. I didn't see it either. So I'm with you, James.
Bill.
Okay, so much to unpack. Now, obviously, Stephen Jones was a young man at the time when this happened, and he has a lot of really, really, really warm memories, right? He's very happy to think back on those times. The offensive line, at its best version, did somewhat resemble, but this offensive line they have now isn't quite that. That's the first thing that jumps out at you. And as was pointed out, Deion Sanders, Darren Woodson, Charles Haley, there's a few other guys I could throw out there, aren't running out of the tunnel for them anymore. Dak, Troy Aikman, that's might not be too far apart. That's not might not be a bad, they might be close-ish. Zeke and Emmett. Zeke may no longer be the best running back on the team. And there was at no point where you could say that about Emmett until he left the team, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, what was said about the wide receiver core 100% correct. And I don't dislike their tight ends, but none of those guys are Jay Novacek. People just utterly sleep on how good Jay Novacek was.
Totally.
He sort of helped to start the tight end revolution. And they didn't throw the ball to him, frankly, as much as they should have. He was a massive mismatch. He was a junior Olympic gold medalist in the decathlon. He was a decathlete in college and finished in the top 3 in the nation, I believe, in the NCAAs in the decathlon. I don't know how, if it's difficult to impart to people who've never actually watched the decathlon what an amazing thing it is to be a decathlete. And most decathletes are 6 feet, 5'11", 5'10", 6'1", 6'2". He was almost 6'5". There's a reason there's very few almost 6'5" decathletes, because it's a hard thing to do, period. And some of the events in the decathlon, that kind of size, tight end size actually works against you for some of those things. It's your friend in the weight throwing events, right? When you're throwing the discus, that kind of stuff, cool. Not so much easy to be a 240-pound pole vaulter, right?
Wow.
Think about what kind of athlete this man had to be a top-level decathlete, right? I mean, when you hear a guy as a track football guy, you're thinking sprints, or if it's a big guy, you're thinking shot put, discus, hammer throw. Decathlon rarely gets mentioned because it's so hard to be a decathlete. So shout out to Jay Novacek. He would be a monster nowadays. He would be would people throw the ball to tight ends now for real? I mean, he would have put up stupid numbers, but that was a running team. This team can run the football. That team we're talking about was a running team. That's why when you look at Troy Aikman's numbers, you're like, that's all? You know, really? 224 or something like that, career touchdowns? I mean, Pat Mahomes is going to pass that in about a year and a half. You know what I mean? Like his career numbers are like, you know, you look at him like, okay, you know. But none of Troy Aikman's career numbers are like, wow, numbers, because they were a true running team. They ran the ball. Yeah. This team can run the football, but they don't run the football like that team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I think, for Aikman, it was about completion percentage. That's the one number.
Right. He had a good completion percentage. Yeah. He stayed away from turning the ball over.
You're right, though. Everything else is pedestrian. But that's all he needed.
Yes. Right. Right. You know, so that's the thing that sort of jumps out at me when I look at the differences. That was a team built on defense and running the football. And Troy Aikman made big plays when he had to. But that team was built on defense and running the football. This team is an offensive juggernaut that throws the football all over the place, right? This is a team that's built on throwing the football, and their defense is coming around, but it's not a dominant defense. And they're not just going to run the ball down your throats 37 times a game. These teams do not resemble each other. There's no fullback on the roster of this team, I don't think. Or maybe there is, and I just don't know his name. But one of the last great fullbacks in the history of football was on this team, and Darryl Moose Johnson, a guy who, you know, isn't going to make the Hall of Fame, but to me is a first ballot Hall of Very Good guy.
Yeah, definitely Hall of Very Good.
Love that Hall of Very Good.
Man. Kind of staying on teams that are very good or not very good. How impressed were you with the way the Bills dominated the Chiefs? It was actually an ass whooping of two halves. Bill?
I do think it was more about, to me, I hate to say this because I absolutely love the coaching staff of the Chiefs. But frankly, they did not do a good job of adjusting. The Bills did some fairly simplistic things. The Bills weren't doing a lot of crazy stuff. They weren't, doing a lot of radar fronts. They weren't, throwing a lot of odd coverages. No, they were saying, we're going to sit soft and off, too deep, and say, are you just going to run the ball down our throats? It really is the same argument we had about the Super Bowl, or discussion we had about the Super Bowl.
Yep.
If you say, we're willing to slow this thing down, and we'll run the ball 44 times if that's what it takes, right? You win that football game. It's a boring, ugly game, but you win it. And I felt like they were a little too wedded to trying to be who they are, as opposed to taking what's there.
That's it. Yep. Yep. That's it. That's my point. I thought he was going to let me have it, and he stole it at the end. Teams have figured out what Kansas City is and what they do. And what they've done now is decided, we're going to challenge you to beat us a different way. And Kansas City continues to say, nope, we're going to do that. And there's a case that can be made for, if I do what I do well and you beat me, you're just better than me. Problem is, you can scheme to make what you do well really, really difficult. And you should go in at halftime as a group and say, we got to have a plan B. We got to do something else well, because they're going to take away our best thing. And I think Bill nailed it at the end. They're too wedded to being the Chiefs that won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. And they're just still convinced that that's the only way we can win. That's how. And I don't think that's true. I think they have to find a way to do some things differently, because I will give all credit. Buffalo's really good. Buffalo knows who they are, and they're going to play 60 minutes of football, and they're never going to stop. They're never going to stop coming at you, and you're not going to get it. You're not going to get an easy game. Whether you win or lose doesn't even matter. And like you said, that was a two-sided ass whooping. They're good. Buffalo's good. So if Kansas City doesn't figure out something, and it doesn't mean go all the way and totally deviate from who you are and what you do, it means what Bill said. Sometimes they're going to give you that. Just take that and then keep taking it and keep taking it. So if I'm gonna jack you every day for your lunch, I might not get the sandwich every day. I'm gonna take the granola bar and I'm gonna take your orange because I like oranges. I'm gonna take a juice box one day. One day though, you're gonna catch me on the wrong day. I'm getting that sandwich. But if you're every day coming after the sandwich and I'm like, I'm not giving you my sandwich. Hey, we got to fight, and I'm not giving you my sandwich. You can fill up a little bit on a granola bar and a juice box. You ain't hungry no more. You didn't get the sandwich, right? But you can win games, right? And I just don't know if I think it's two things. One, Buffalo is really good. I can't say that enough. Buffalo is really good, but Kansas City has to figure out a plan B, because Bill's right. If they stay wedded to this is who we are and this is what we do, there's tape. There's a blueprint. There's a blueprint on how to beat them. And there's tape. And teams watch tape. They watch a lot of tape. Those all 22s are out there. Bill's probably got them on a separate screen right now during the podcast.
And there's also that kid there named Herbert.
Where? It's in LA, you mean?
In that division.
Oh, yeah.
So
they're the best team in the West. Like I was on this for a while. Like this isn't news to me.
You did call
it. I said the most improved team. Remember this? I said the most improved football this year would be the San Diego Chargers. Remember when I said that before the season?
Yeah, because I reminded you that you called them San Diego again. That's exactly what you said last time.
That is exactly what I said last time.
Yeah. Hey,
but thank you for not letting me leave the house with a booger hanging out.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But you're still right. You're still right.
Yeah.
They are the best team. So.
And I still got David Carr throwing the ball for the Raiders, so don't worry about it. But once again, we come to that question, especially and I'm talking about this division. They've already lost 2 games, right? Kansas City.
Yep.
Can they afford to lose a third or fourth? I mean, are you going to see a wild card team with 4 losses coming out of this division?
You mean on the AFC or literally?
No, that division.
That division.
In other words, that division. Are you going to? Is that division going to put 2 teams?
Yes.
In the playoffs.
Yes, I think both of the teams we're talking about now.
Because I'm projecting at least 4 losses for Kansas City.
That's fine. They'll be. Oh yeah, if they go 13-4, yeah, they'll make the playoffs. And I think that the Raiders are about to go into a death spiral for all the reasons we talked about. Right? And I think Denver was a fraud all along. They won 3 games against 3 bad teams early, and people were like, "Oh wait, Denver's not a fraud." Sorry, my team is going to struggle to win 3 games. I shouldn't say stuff like that, but they're not a playoff team. So I see a path where Kansas City can win 12, 13 games, and I think 12 games in an expanded playoff, yeah, that gets you in. Sure. I still think Bill's right. The Los Angeles Chargers are the best team in that division and will probably win the division. But Kansas City in a wild card spot, yeah, sure. It won't matter once their flight lands in Buffalo and they get to Orchard Park or Orchard Lake or wherever it's called. And once they get to Orchard Park, it's a wrap. That game in Buffalo in January, nope, I got the Bills.
Does a 3 or 4 team a 3 or 4 loss team make the playoffs in that from that division, Bill?
Let me think about this. So I think the Raiders may be a wild card team, maybe. Let me think. Who else? We have the Browns winning. I think everybody has the Browns.
No, just their division.
Oh, just their division.
We're talking about the Chargers, the Raiders, Kansas City, and who brings up the rear?
Denver.
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 Yeah,
Denver.
Denver brings up the rear. I think at some point the Chiefs get their act together, and I think they realize, oh, okay, the old days, not Anthony Sherman, not the Shermanator, or was it the Shermanator? They had the Shermanator, right? They did have Anthony Sherman at one point, right? I think
Yeah.
it was them. It's time to bring those days back, right? Let's bring back the fullback. As long as teams have just bound determined, we're not going to give up the big play. Like that's what everyone's decided.
Yep.
Tyreek Hill's not going to beat us, right? We're not giving up big plays. Tyreek Hill's not going to beat us. You can scramble around back there and either take off and run with it, right? Because we're playing a lot of 2-man, or or you can throw the ball short, but you're not going to throw the ball deep. That's what everyone's decided. You're not throwing the ball deep. Okay, fine. We don't have to. I mean, you've got, I think, the best tight end in football right now.
Absolutely.
You can just ravage people with that, but run the football. Come out running the football and run the football. I don't give you have a drive where all you do is run the football.
Right.
Right? Until they come out of that defense, you can continue to run the football and get 4, 5, 6, 7 yards a shot.
Yep.
So if they come out and do that and they win a ugly, boring game doing it, two things will happen. Well, one, they will have picked up a win. Two, they will have realized internally, oh, we don't have to be the new version of the greatest show on turf. We can just be a team that, first of all, our defense will enjoy it. Oh, we get to not play as much.
Right. I can put my helmet down. I can set my helmet down for a minute.
Right. Because they have a tendency to either go 3 and out or turn the ball over or score very quickly, right? That's been what they've been doing so far this season. So you now have an opportunity, a chance to establish, and it just helps your offensive line. Offensive linemen get a chance to go forward, not backwards. They love that, right? To me, it's not that complicated. But yeah, I think they could. I think the Chiefs could still fight their way back into it. They just have to simplify. I mean, hey, let's just do it the old-fashioned way, right? Dig up all those Hank Stram. Oh, hey, 65 toss power trap. I don't bust that open, right? Dust off all those old Hank Stram playbooks.
I would love to see 65 toss power trap.
Bill, you spoke of the Raiders. Now you have 3 teams from that division.
Well, I don't think all 3 make it, but I think 3 have a legitimate chance. The Raiders are, well, we'll see what happens. The Raiders are an interesting proposition because they're a good football team with, well, we talked about, right? But now, they dropped the house on the Wicked Witch, and now we have to see what happens next, right? Conceivably, this team could suddenly go, right, and play better, or they could fall apart. I don't know enough about how that team's locker room works to know which will happen. But I think we're about to learn a lot about that team. This next game, it's going to tell us so much of what you want to know about how that team is built.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Now, Demetrius, you're one. Many times I've heard this on you say this. In fact, I think you even mentioned it today when you were talking about your upbringing and the friends, the people that you hang around with, and how they influence you. Any thoughts on the interim coach that has been John Gruden's friend for 2 decades or more?
Honestly, I don't know him, and I am just one who does not make comments. And I don't know John Gruden, by the way. I can look at a series of actions and make a degree of an assessment about who you might be. And I don't know anything about this guy. I feel like I'm gonna say his name wrong.
But you're the one that brought up the coalition, between friends and
who holds you accountable, right? Where was he pulling John Gruden? But I don't know if he saw the emails. But I know he probably heard the jokes. Now the problem there, though, is something called positional authority, right? I will tell my friend Bill Carroll the Chargers play in Los Angeles. If my boss on a conference call tomorrow says San Diego Chargers, I ain't saying nothing. You're right, boss. You're right, boss. The lightning bolts. Right. There's positional authority. What you will say to your boy and what you'll say to your boss ain't the same thing, right? And I'm talking about friends. Like my brother, I have a brother 18 months younger than I am, and he critiques my podcast. Like every week, I get this whole deal, right? And we don't see the game the same. We don't see the team the same, but I value my brother's input. I value him as a human being because I know he's a person who at the end of the day has my best interest at heart. So even if he criticizes my podcast or tells me I know my brother is looking out for me, right? Random dude on Twitter says you like the Fords too much. I go hard. First of all, how dare you? Right. But then I'll fire back on Twitter and say, I just see the game differently than you. The owner didn't drop any passes, the owner didn't miss any blocks. So there's a degree of what you can say to your friend or your colleague versus what you can say to your boss. And until 2 days ago, John Gruden was that man's boss. So he had to stay within a certain set of parameters. And that being said, they probably have some kind of relationship. They probably, and he it's up to him to come out and speak out and say, hey, and they're going to say it, right? You're going to have a bunch of these people say, this is John being John, and John Gruden's not a bad guy. And I don't really care about any of that. I go back to Richard Pryor. You're going to believe me or your lying eyes, right? I know what I'm seeing, and I know. So I don't hold him accountable. To answer your question, no. This man has worked hard. He can't be held accountable for John Gruden's sins. Someone should ask the question, hey, why didn't you ever say anything? My guess is he's going to say, this is my boss. I got a job. I got bills to pay. Maybe something like that, but I certainly don't hold him accountable and say he doesn't deserve a chance to do the job. He doesn't deserve his opportunity. I wouldn't say any of that because Gruden's the one who tried to okie doke me. So I don't blame this guy. I'm sorry. I can't remember his name to save my life. Biasi or I don't want to mess it up. I don't remember his name.
Bill, what's his name?
Who
the
who we
new
talking
interim,
about?
the new interim coach of the Las Vegas Raiders.
Rich Biasechi.
Yeah,
Biasachi, the
Biasachi.
special teams coordinator.
Yeah. So I don't hold any of this against Rich. Rich deserves an opportunity to coach and see what he can do, and he should be graded strictly on how he coaches the team starting 2 days ago.
Bill, what's your thoughts? You've been friends for 20 years. Were you friends or were you just acquaintances? Or was it just an employee-employer relationship?
So we're still talking, I'm assuming, about Mr. Gruden.
Yeah. How do you hold Biaggi accountable for? They were friends. He worked with him, and
not only that, but remember when Gruden left to go to Monday Night Football, this gentleman had different jobs in different places, but as soon as Gruden went back into football as a head coach, this was one of his first hires.
Yeah.
So there's a very close relationship there.
Yep.
So I mean, are you going with Demetrius and hey, this man is my boss? Are we going, with hey, I have blinders on, and this is my job. I have to feed my family. What's your thoughts here? Birds of a feather flock together. What's
right? So yeah, they've as was mentioned, they've been together since 2002. He hired him back in the Tampa Bay days, and since then he's worked for the Chargers, worked for Dallas, and then in 2018 came to Oakland / Las Vegas to work there. And while my assumption is right that they had, I'm going to assume they had something beyond a professional relationship. I don't know that for a fact. My assumption is that they were at least, cordial and maybe even enjoyed each other's company in a work environment. However, I don't think he was in charge of looking over John Gruden's emails before he sent them. I'm going to guess that was not part of his duties as a special teams coordinator. So it is possible for somebody to have sides of themselves they don't share with everyone, right? There are people who I would think would know better who have risen to the defense of John Gruden recently, including some black men, right, who have defended him fairly vigorously. So it is not hard. And once again, it should be pointed out when this stuff happened, Gruden wasn't even working. He wasn't working as a coach. He wasn't even coaching at the time. So it is quite possible that he knew nothing of that stuff. Had he heard him say some stuff that was probably off in meetings or, rides to and from games or whatever, it's quite possible. But this is us simply speculating. We have no idea, obviously, if.
No, hold on, Bill, because you said that you personally talked to people that have played for John Gruden.
I've talked to people. Yes, I've definitely talked to people for Gruden. Yes.
And you could not tell me that a player has these observations, but yet a coach that's been beside him for 2 decades has never seen, heard, or what is this guy, the Three Monkeys?
No, I'm assuming he's probably seen and heard some things. I don't know if he's seen and heard these kinds of things, right? Here's what I would say. The things that players dislike about someone are not always the things that a coach, because that's two different environments, 2 different ecosystems, if you want to think of it that way. So, especially a guy like Gruden likes to keep his players on edge. That's part of his thing, right? Is like I said, stirring it, agitating, and messing with people. That's something he does with his coachings. He does with his players. I have no evidence that he does that kind of stuff with his coaching staff. Now, he may have, but I've never heard anyone say that. And so I don't know if he has the same sort of relationship, the same sort of whatever, right? And once again, there are players who loved him too. I'm not clear. There were players that loved Gruden too. I've talked to some players who had nothing bad to say about him, but I talked to 1 or 2 who had nothing but bad things to say about him. So it's clear, like I said before, that he had favorites. Right? As I said before, he had some players that he loved, they loved him, he loved them, whatever. And I don't know if he had the same sort of thing going with his coaching staff. He may have had coaches that he butted heads with. I'm going to guess he did with his personality type, and coaches that he loved and loved him. So it's very easy. You mentioned, since we're doing analogies, it's the blind man and the elephant, right? If you're holding on to the tail, you have a very different, if you're the blind man holding on to the tail of the elephant, you have a very different idea of what an elephant's like than the person holding the trunk or the person holding the tusks or the person who's got their hands on the side of the elephant. Right. So Rich Bisaccia isn't receiving the same Gruden, isn't being visited by the same Gruden that some of the players who, say, for instance, have strong personalities, right?
Hypothetically, hypothetically, Rich Bisaccia is not, let's say, Simeon Rice.
I didn't say any names.
Hypothetically, I just said, just pick a random guy.
just a random
dude, right? He's a random hypothetical guy. He can't. He's different within that ecosystem. He sits in a different place than Simeon Rice does. Simeon Rice can do whatever the hell he wants. Simeon Rice, quite frankly, but within that ecosystem, and Bill said it better. Bisaccia sees a different Gruden than Simeon Rice sees. That's just reality.
Yeah. Well, I understand that too, but at some point over that steak dinner at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, did he could compare his tires to the lips of certain guy. I mean, or maybe maybe. Well, anyway, it is Cribbing After Dark, but anyway. Guys, is it time for the Clowns to move on from? Excuse me, the Browns to move on from OBJ. What do you think, Demetrius?
Well, that's easier said than done. First of all, it's just easy for us to sit on the crib and go, just move on. Well, he's got a contract, right? And it's binding. It's binding in every state, including Ohio. So you got to find a team that wants I'm thinking 30-ish receiver who's coming off of 2 leg injuries, if I'm not mistaken, and makes probably north of 14 a year. Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck. So this is a great conversation, I guess. I'm not sure I see that team that's a aging wide receiver coming off of 2 leg injuries away from a Super Bowl, right? And that's not how the cap works. The reason this league is a machine is because of stuff like this. It's brutal at times. It is harsh at times. But if you do it right, and this is coming from a Lions fan, any team in this league, if they do it right for 3 years, can be competitive. Everybody doesn't do it right, but it's not easy. And when you make this decision and you acquire OBJ, you didn't just acquire Odell Beckham Jr. You really didn't acquire Odell Beckham Jr. You acquired the contract of Odell Beckham Jr. And the minute his productivity stops matching his contract, congratulations. That's where you are. So I'll try and answer the question. Yeah, of course. They'd love to, probably. Yeah, but I just don't think it's that easy. I don't know where you're gonna. I don't know how your cap can't be good enough to do that, because I know guys on your roster. Your cap doesn't work that way. I know you got too many talented players, right? You're not going to release Myles Garrett. You just signed Clowney. You got Baker is either up soon or soon. Baker's going to need a deal. You got to sign up Baker.
Right. Yeah. But Baker's in the last year of his rookie deal.
Okay. Yeah. So this doesn't work. Now, if you can release him and take a cap hit, I don't know if you can do that. Any team, including the Lions, who really need a receiver. And my brother has said that to me. Why don't we go get Beckham? I said, no, and hell no. No, that's not where we are in the build. His contract's too big. No, you're not going to. I don't know. We can do the research, see if we can find a team that fits. I don't know where that team is because of all those reasons.
Bill?
I mean, the Colts are probably the best fit, but I don't know if they want. I don't think they want him, but that's one of the few
except
teams. But that's one of the few teams where the combination of need and cap kind of align. Right. Okay, so you asked the question: the dead cap, if they got rid of him in 2021, the cap hit is $15,700,000, and it's dead cap of $15,700,000, almost $16 million.
Do that.
Right? So
$16 million.
That's a no. Next year, they get away from the dead cap. They do still take the $15 million cap hit, but at least there's no dead cap. Then the year after that, $15 million cap hit, no dead cap. And then 2024, he becomes an unrestricted free agent. He is 28 until November the 5th of this year. He turns 29 on November the 5th. So he should have 4 or 5 productive years left. But the issue, was mentioned, is more durability and the type of receiver he is. He's not a does everything super well kind of receiver. He is a big play receiver. And there are teams that will love that, right? I mean, he really would do well in certain offenses. The Rams don't have the cap space, but they love that kind of receiver, right? He's the kind of receiver they love. But they don't have the cap space. They have cap issues of their own.
Right.
The other teams that make sense, like I said, except for the Colts, it's hard to line up the need and the cap space. So teams that are contending right on the edge, like if you drop him on Minnesota, wow, right? You've got this tremendous dynamic young X receiver in Justin Jefferson, who's on his way to being a superstar. You can now put Thielen in the slot as that slot, the power slot, big slot, right? And now you put him as the speed Z, right? Because Odell, when healthy, can still run past people. Now you're talking, right? But I don't think there's an interest there, and I don't think I'd have to check their cap situation. But I don't think it would happen. The places where that makes sense, it's hard to make those places also work.
Yep.
Yeah, because I was thinking Houston. What about Houston? Would he work?
Well, what about Houston? I mean,
would he work in Houston? I don't know what work means. Could he fit? They probably have the cap space, and that's it.
But they're in the trough. They're in the depths of the rebuild. Like teams
exactly
that
It's
are
not time.
rebooting their whole franchise rarely add this kind of player.
Now, he would be a great fit in Detroit. He would be a great fit in Detroit. We're not doing that. That is not what we're doing. We got 2-1s next year and 2-1s the year after that. We want manager, and we got a young guy in Quintez Cephas that we really like. We're going to add manageable until we're ready to compete. Why would we bring on $15 million and a 29-year-old guy coming off two leg injuries? There's too many reasons it doesn't make sense for teams like Houston and Detroit. Now,
All right, guys.
Urban might do it in Jacksonville.
No.
Well, it depends on whether or not he comes with a lap dance. But anyway, that's another.
I tossed that one underhand to you.
I know you did. You give me. All right, guys. Bill, I'm going to let you go first here, and we're going to let Demetrius take us home. So why don't you give us your final thoughts for this evening? The game is now 1-1. So it's I think it's what the middle of the 7th.
Yeah.
Or the middle of the
So
6th.
I'm going to begin, as they say, at the beginning, right? I first became aware of John Gruden when he was another one of those Wunderkind, right? John David Gruden was and is, the son of a coach, right? He's been around football from the moment of his conception, quite literally, right? His father, Jim, was a regional scout, a quarterbacks coach, and at one point, director of player personnel for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, we know that Jay went on, to be a very good college player, and at one point held some Arena League records with the Tampa Bay Storm and Orlando Predators. But he goes to Clay High School, and then from there to Muskingum College, and then after 1 year there, transfers to the University of Dayton. He was a letterman, backup quarterback. When he graduates, goes right into coaching, becomes a graduate assistant at Tennessee. From there goes to Southeast Missouri State. Then from there, University of Pacific. Tight ends, becomes an offensive assistant as tight ends coach. Goes back with Walt Harris, who he'd originally become associated with in his time at Tennessee when he was a grad assistant. Again, is hired at Pacific. Then he goes from there to become a special assistant with the 49ers under Coach Mike Holmgren, who was the quarterback's coach. Gets promoted from there to being the wide receivers coach under Paul Hackett, another one of those West Coast offense guys at Pittsburgh. And at the age of 28, right? At the age of 28, he gets hired by Mike Holmgren as a offensive assistant and wide receivers coach. At that point, he's one of the youngest position coaches in the NFL. And that's why I first become aware of him, right? He's this Wunderkind. People are already talking about him. He's he's assistant now. He's a future head coach, blah, blah, blah. Then at 31, he becomes the offensive coordinator under Ray Rhodes of the Philadelphia Eagles. He's the youngest coordinator in the NFL at that point. And then just a little bit later, I think, was it 2 years later? Let me see. I'm trying to figure it out. Maybe 3 years. Maybe three years later, he gets hired as the Raiders head coach. He's the youngest head coach in the league, obviously, at that point. There's some good stuff. There's some bad stuff in his days with the Oakland Raiders. And he first gets the Chucky nickname in his days there, Grady Jackson, defensive lineman, big guy, big D tackle, slaps the nickname on him. And after the 1988 slasher film Child's Play. But, they compile a 40-28 record in his time there with the Raiders. And then he moves on to take over Tony Dungy and, high stakes trade. But people forget this. Like, this was a trade, right? A handful of times that a coach has come to somebody in a trade, but Tampa Bay sent a 202 first and a 203 first round draft pick, right? 2002 and 2004 second round draft picks and $8 million in cash. Sweet do-re-mi was sent by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to the Raiders in order to acquire. I mean, this is I just want to extend like what a wow moment this was for those who maybe weren't around when this happened. This was a wow moment. When John David Gruden was traded from the Raiders to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it was one of those wow moments. It was headline news. It was, are you kidding me? Big time headline news. Because very rarely are coaches traded, and they are never traded for that kind of haul. I mean, this is like the kind of thing you do to get like an elite level quarterback, right? When you make that kind of deal. And he brings in, the West Coast offense and begins to push the offense to try to essentially hold up its end of the bargain more. They already had one of the great defenses of all time. And, supposedly his getting in people's faces and being more confrontational worked so well that suddenly this team that was, first of all, on the precipice of being a Super Bowl championship team already, but that got them over the finish line. That's what pushed them on to greatness. But within a couple of years, he's worn out his welcome, right? Though he got, in 2008, a contract extension, he does not get to finish said contract extension, right? By 2009, right? So a year after a 3-year extension, he's being shown the door, right? Interesting, fascinating, right? That this happens. Then he starts what he called the FCA, or FFCA, the Fire Football Coaches Association, a football think tank that had an office in a Tampa strip mall, and he had a bunch of film and playbooks, and he would bring in young coaches, Chip Kelly, Urban Meyer, Jim Haslett, Rick Venturi, Sean McVay, very young Sean McVay, Greg Schiano, Monty Kiffin, and others came to watch film and talk to him. He eventually closed it down in 2018 when he took the job with the back to go back to Oakland. He was inducted to the Buccaneers Ring of Honor in 2017, which about not even a week ago, a few days ago, was revoked. Which I now know is a thing. You can now revoke someone being in the Ring of Honor.
You can unring of unhonor their ass.
Yeah.
Unring and unhonored. Yes. Obviously, as we know, he worked during his time as a fired football coach for ESPN. And, in October of this year, some of us already knew there was some stuff, right? We didn't know all the stuff, but we knew there's some stuff with Gruden. And now that stuff went from being things you'd heard through back channels and rumors and second and third hand sources to, in his own words, things he said very directly. And horrific things, right? Terrible things. And on a team where the first active, openly gay player in NFL history, in Carl Nassib, had the courage and class to do what he did and handle it as well as he had, to have him have to find out the way he found out about what his coach has said, and I'm going to assume thought about homosexuals, at least in the past, and who knows, how much he may have changed or evolved on the issue, but it's clear that however he quote unquote meant the things he said the things he said, right? And it came from somewhere. It wasn't like he was possessed by demons. These were things that were in his mind, and he said them thinking, hoping, whatevering, that they were being received by somebody who had similar beliefs, thoughts, whatever. And that's, of course, where we're going to continue to see where this all goes, because this was an investigation, not of him, as we all know, right? This was part of an investigation of the Washington football team and their culture. And he was communicating with Bruce Allen, who himself has had stuff in the past and hired some people that I think we might have talked about on past shows who had some stuff. Some of them had a lot of stuff. So my concern goes to the people that worked within and work still within that organization and how this may affect some of them. And my concern goes to some of the players who had looked to this man for leadership. And my concern goes, especially, like I said, to Carl Nassib, who I would imagine must feel at the very least betrayed or at least deceived by learning what he's learning about this man who I'm certain did not present himself this way to him. Those are my final thoughts.
Demetrius, as always, Bill, thank you, man. Appreciate it. And, look forward to talking to you very soon. We're finishing up our role of the Black Church, so maybe you can join us there, Bill, the last 2 weeks. But Demetrius, your thoughts, your final thoughts. You kind of gave us a preview, but let's rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, so I'm going to take my final thoughts and talk to John Gruden, or metaphorically, the John Grudens of the world, right? And there are guys out there who are sitting and they're seeing this story. They think, what's the big deal? What's the big deal, right? He's John Gruden, he's football coach, all that stuff, right? So I'm just going to metaphorically speak to these people. There's a concept called redemption, right? We are a country. We are people, like particularly people that look like us. And I'm going to be honest with you. I have made mistakes. I have not lived a perfect life, right? I have made poor choices, bad decisions, used bad judgment, and hurt people. Not because I am an a-hole, but for all those other reasons. Selfishness, like I said, listening to the wrong people, bad info, whatever. But God sometimes gives you this opportunity. He gives you this moment. Some people call it rock bottom. Maybe it's rock bottom, maybe not. You cannot do anything about those emails, John Gruden. And if you're a guy like John Gruden, you can't do anything about all the crap you've said and how you treated people in the past. What you can do is you can take a moment and you can look in the mirror and you can decide who are you going to be going forward, right? I'm not going to be the dude to sit here and says John Gruden. Well, no, I called him an asshole a couple times. So I am going to say that. I'm going to say it again. Doesn't mean you have to stay that way. That's the thing. You don't have to stay that way. I'm sure he's done some good things in his life. And all the people who support him are going to come out and tell you about when he donated to charity and this little kid that he helped and all that. It's not the point. It's not the point. You have to look and you have to come out. You don't have to do anything. My advice, come out. I don't care about apologies, specifically when it comes to racism. And again, I know a lot of white people. There are a lot of white people in my life. There are white people I love dearly, who love me dearly. I know this, right? The thing you don't say, I'm struggling a little bit. Guys, John Gruden right now at this minute.
I know exactly what you're struggling with, because no matter how many times you wipe it, it's still an asshole.
Right, exactly. Right, John Gruden right now, wherever he's sitting, he doesn't really believe John Gruden's done anything wrong. He doesn't think John Gruden's a bad guy. He literally walked up to the podium. I'm not a racist. I'm not a racist. And I said earlier it was layered. And it is, because I'm sure he's done good things. There are black people who will say, I love John Gruden. He's been nothing but good to me. That's why it's not that simple. It goes back to a couple things. The two biggest things to me. The thing about D. Smith pisses me off, right? It does. It does. And I shouldn't be. He didn't say it about me. There are really, really fine examples of African-American men in this world that people should look to and go, that's a good dude. That's a smart dude. That is a dude who his job is for the most part about helping other people, right? Being the executive director of the PA, D. Smith's not a player. It's helping other dudes who, quite frankly, as smart as a lot of them are, none of them are as smart as D. Smith. And even if they try and get him kicked out of his job, all that stuff, there are people who don't deserve to be talked about in that way. What I know about D. Smith, he's one of them. So this idea that you had a unique and special anger toward D. Smith, but you dug deep and you found something that shouldn't have been inside you. That reference to his lips should not have existed within you. You shouldn't have even been able to come up with that. Even at 58, That shit should have been way before you were born. How did you even come up with that? Right? It's so, but the real,
Unless
it's who you are. It's who you are, right? And I, like I said, I'm very careful because I'm sure he's done good things with his life. I'm sure there are black people that love him. I'm sure he's done great things. It is, and I was the same way when I was trying to explain away my bad behavior. I tried to talk about the man I think I am because I know who Mary and Matt raised. But you still got to speak to the shit you did, bro. And people who loved me set me down and said, "You got to speak to what you." Not even to us. We love you. We're gonna love you no matter what. Our love's unconditional. We're disappointed, whatever. You need to go look in the mirror and tell that dude why did that happen. Tell that dude how you're going to be different going forward. That's who you got to tell. That's who you got to tell, and that's my advice. The second part is just kind of disturbing. The Bruce Allens and the people in these email chains. How did you just accept this? How are you cool with this? How did you let this slide? It's the booger in the nose thing again, right? How did you just let this slide? If Bill Carroll sends me an email after SportsKRIB off the air, and it's something like that, he's getting a reply, bro. What who is this? And what the hell did you do with Bill? Because I know my friend Bill, he didn't type this. Why? This is not cool. Even if you say, look, you have a right to put whatever you want in your emails. You have a right to say whatever you want. You have a right to not get a shot, Kyrie. I don't care, right? Don't try and okey doke me. But if I'm your friend, I'm going to show you what's called loving accountability. No. Like I said, my brother Kenny will call me and go, dude, podcast wasn't that great today. What? I know you were disappointed because we lost by a record, but you didn't bring your enthusiasm. And I know where it's coming from because that's my brother. And that dude loves me no matter what, right? There's no loving accountability. And it makes me wonder, does anybody love this man? That might be a little dramatic, right? But the depth that he went to on D. Smith pisses me off. I'm disturbed that nobody in his life has called him out on this and said, the audacity to put it in writing. The audacity to put it in writing. Traceable emails, right? It's to Bill's point earlier, it's actually not surprising, but for whatever reason, it still gets me. Still gets me. Like, what the hell? D. Smith? There's some knuckleheads in that league. Some of them probably play for you. There might be. That's the dude you decide to go to the deepest, ugliest racial trope you can come up with? You went and watched your Birth of a Nation or some shit and came up with the worst thing you can come up with for D. Smith? I don't get it. And I don't like being okey doke. I don't. You are a racist. You're a sexist. You're a homophobe. Own it. Tell the dude in the mirror. Own it. And then decide you're going to be different. And then just every day, stack up better days. Stack up better behavior. Treat people better. And at the end of the day, who you are is going to be who you are. The people who love you, who are going to say all the good stuff, they're going to love you no matter what. They're never going to. Apparently, none of them love you enough to sit your ass down and tell you the truth. So they're going to love you no matter what. I don't really know who he is as a man. I've heard enough things to like players getting CTEs and you're mad at the league for worrying about head trauma. What kind of human being? It's kind of amazing to me. And I know. I've said I'm not surprised. And this is a bigger thing than John Gruden. I hope people look. But Gruden has an opportunity. Redemption is awesome. Step up, man up, own who you are and what you've done, and be better. And this country, this world, people will take you back. They will take you back because we love redemption stories. We love it. Mike Tyson is the best redemption story ever. I love Mike Tyson right now. Today's Mike Tyson is one of my favorite people. I used to not be a fan. I'll say that. Right. Current Mike Tyson, I think, is a phenomenal human being who can look in the mirror and he's open and he's honest. And the kind of things that John Gruden has in his heart, apparently, they don't go away when people don't show you loving accountability. And they don't go away when you try and okey doke smart people like me, James King, and Bill Carroll. Not going to work. Never going to work.
Maybe you always talk about retiring, Demetrius. I intend to be around when you retire. I don't know about Mike, but maybe we could all meet up in Las Vegas and smoke that blunt.
I'm in. I can't wait to retire and start smoking. I don't care who sees this. As soon as I retire, I'm gonna start smoking weed. I can't fail a drug test. I like my job too much. But as soon as I retire, it's on. gummies, brownies, all that. I'm doing all
Hey man, you definitely got into cribbing after dark.
right, right.
They did
I knew it. I knew it.
for us to get off there. But hey, thank you guys, man. As always, it's just a matter of having fun. That's all we do
Yep,
on Thursday
yep.
night.
Love it, bro.
So
Appreciate it.
I hope you guys can join us Saturday. And for uh, the winners are Demetrius. As always, glad to have you, man, and glad that you were able to come through the trauma of the past week, man. And
Appreciate that.
good to have you back, my man.
Appreciate it. I'm glad to be back, man. It was a pleasure. Kyrie and John Gruden brought the worst out of me, but it's always a pleasure.
There's
to
the mismatch buddy film. Nobody knew we would need to see.
Like Rush Hour 4 with John Gruden and Kyrie Irving. That's the one I want.
Hey, next week we'll proceed with the siege of Chucky. Let's see what happens.
Exactly. Let's do more.
All right, guys. Have a good
All right,
night,
fellas.
man. I'll see
Have a
you
good
next
one.
Thursday.
All right.
All right.